The tape. We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play. We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape. Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
The tape.
UGA game day, boy, we ball out. Pull up, put the whole conference in the doghouse. Leave them 6 feet, see me on the win streak. All-star status, go coach, and the bench deep. Offense on 10, how we run it? Your best ain't nothing, we gon' send them boys punting. Black and red, got them dead on arrival. Defense hunkered down for the tie. Hey, you don't want it with the dogs. Found guy on it, you don't want it with my dog. Break it down, play by play, that's the day-to-day. They know we ain't come to play, boy, it's UGA. Kirby smart, I cannot play the fool. Back to back, we did not come to lose. Back to back like we got something to prove. Pay your dues, dog nation on the move. What's up?
We do a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape. The tape.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Shut up. Let's grind.
We ain't gonna play, we ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape. The
Shut
tape.
up and grind.
Let's grind.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
Shut up. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that? Let's shut up and grind some tape.
The modern age of college football. It has brought forth many of casualties. Pac-12, meaningful bowl games, the ability to pay your recruits in McDonald's bags and sway them to go to different schools. It's all dying. But we have another bastion that may be coming to an end soon. USC and Notre Dame are reportedly struggling to sign a deal that would continue their rivalry game, which has been going on for nearly 100 years now. So the issue comes from USC basically not stating that they want to deal with the traveling issues. As, of course, you know, they joined the Big Ten last year and have to travel to places like Ohio, Michigan, New York, Syracuse, not Syracuse, but cities in New York, which has put a lot of stress on that. They will play in Indiana this year, and they have offered to extend the game throughout the 2026 season, which would, of course, be played in California. But it is something that is on the docket for perhaps ending soon. Welcome in, everyone. But before that, I just want to introduce JWill, who is covered in rain because 2 minutes before we went on air, he goes, "Is that rain I hear?" He drives a Jeep, soft top Jeep, and I assume you hadn't put your top on yet. So,
dude, it was the first time all year. So I did it on Friday because it was nice weather. So I had it off the whole weekend, took the doors off. I thankfully put the doors back on before I came over here.
Smart move.
But I checked the weather. I was like, oh, it's not supposed to rain. I'll keep the top off for a little bit. And then Georgia being Georgia, spring weather in Georgia, rain pops out of nowhere, downpouring. So I have to run out there, put my car's top back on and everything. Still no windows or anything. So seats might be a little wet when I ride home tonight.
Man, sorry to hear that. Man. Welcome in. As you'd expect, we have a loaded show yet again. Proposed regulation system in college football. JWill stumbled across that earlier. We'll go over that. The Belichick era is already a success in UNC. I'm declaring it now. We have another college football questionnaire. And Hugh Freeze had some rather interesting things to say. But before we get into those, JWill, I want to talk about what's your opinion on this Notre Dame-USC rivalry perhaps coming to an end?
That's kind of what we had talked about. Maybe could be the downfall of expanded conference games or expanded conferences on top of creating more conference games. Like I know the Big Ten already plays 9 conference games, but the SEC talking about going to 9 and whatnot. There is a risk of some of these outer conference rivalries ending. And this isn't just any rivalry. I mean, me and you were talking about it before the show. This is a rivalry that has existed between these two programs since 1926. The only time that they've ever missed games is, I believe, for 3 years. They missed games due to World War, and then also 2020 when COVID hit. Those are the only times since 1926 that Notre Dame and USC have not played. I mean, this is a historic rivalry. These are two teams that have always played one another, but the mentioning of more demand of traveling due to the conference play, and this is USC talking, by the way. It says USC has expressed reluctance into a long-term deal due to uncertainty about the college football playoff format and while assessing the demands of greater travel as a member of the Big Ten. I think this kind of plays into the role of Notre Dame doing a long-term contract. I mean, a long-term contract with Clemson. And, I mentioned it with the SEC teams. This is at risk of Kentucky and Louisville maybe not playing one another. Maybe Georgia and Georgia Tech get thrown into this as well. Like, you just have no idea what the repercussions of the expanded playoff and the future of college football could do.
Yeah, now luckily teams that you said there are in-state rivals, and the travel for those is pretty moderate. Like, you travel further sometimes for in-conference games, but the reality of it is, like, these cross-state rivalries, these rivalries that are so old that might not necessarily be as centralized, but just because at the time it was the biggest powers playing college football. Like, I'm just looking at USC's 2025 schedule right now. They have to go to Indiana for Purdue. They have to go to Illinois. They have to go to Indiana for Notre Dame. They have to go to Nebraska. Like, these aren't small trips for them. This isn't a 45-minute bus ride. This isn't a 2-hour flight. These are long travel days. Keeping another Indiana trip for Notre Dame on that, it doesn't seem very feasible. By the way, not only is it tiring, it's very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, when you hear about traveling for a football game, you kind of just think of it as getting the players from California to the East Coast or whatever it is. Like, these teams having to get their players from one place to another. Maybe you have to do it a few days earlier. Maybe you have to find another spot to do some practice before the game or whatever. But what most people don't think about is getting all of your equipment from that place all the way across the country. These schools are having to use semi-trucks that leave on Tuesday, driving from California out to South Carolina for a game against Clemson. And then you have to get that equipment back. Then you might have another road trip the very next week if you're one of these California schools back on the East Coast. So there's a lot of logistics that go into this, a lot of, like you said, a lot of monetary or a lot of expenses when it comes to this. It's not just about, hey, we got to take another flight or we got to go forward 3 more hours because of the time change or whatever it is. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into this.
Now, it should be noted that USC has expressed that they want the game to continue. They want to be able to still play this rivalry because it is so special to college football. But they've suggested maybe playing at the start of the year so that travel is less on them, or even maybe moving it to a neutral site game was moved up in there. So it'll be interesting to see. They're obviously going to play this year, but they're not scheduled to play in 2026 as of now. So.
Yeah, and maybe these rivalries or out-of-conference rivalries start getting turned into one-year deals. Like, we know we're good for this year, so we'll go ahead and schedule this one. But next year, we might have to keep an open slot until we officially know that both of these teams can play.
Now, if conference realignment doesn't piss you off enough, there's a new proposed relegation system to college football. Now, for those who don't understand what relegation is, it's a big thing in soccer where if Team A is good enough to be in this league, they'll stay in this league. But if you lose, you get sent down to League 2 or League 3, and you can advance and disadvance and be downgraded as the time goes on. So, JWill, you came across a suggestion for this.
Yeah, this isn't anything official. Like, this isn't a formal submission from anybody. This is just from DraftKings. This is literally from their Instagram account. But I came across it. I read it. I thought it was pretty interesting. I think there are some pros to doing this, and we'll get into that after I kind of lay out all the rules. Now, it might be a little tough to follow, but I think you'll get the gist of it just after I read it off. So the first league that they would have is the Premier Division. This would have 24 teams, the highest tier in college football. 2 divisions of 12 teams, 12-game schedule, national championship game, no playoff. Bottom 3 teams get relegated based on win percentage. So think of like your NFL. This would be like the NFL of college football, where you have your best 24 teams. You'll split them in half. You have them in 2 different conferences, and then ultimately you'll have a champion between these 2 leagues. So then the bottom 3 teams would then be relegated to this league, the championship division, which has 32 teams. This would be the middle tier of college football. 4 divisions of 8 teams, 12-game schedule. Division winners enter a 4-team playoff. First, second, and third place teams get promoted, and last place of each division then gets relegated to the national division, which has 40 to 48 teams, the lowest tier in college football. 5 or 6 divisions of 8 teams, a 12-game schedule, national playoff featuring 8 teams. The final 4 teams are then promoted. So for your Premier Division, think of teams like Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Texas, the heavy hitters, the blue bloods, whatever you want to call it, those types of programs, the typical top-tier programs that you would think of. Although Missouri was slid into this one, don't really agree with that one. Don't know why they were thrown in the mix here.
Foolish.
And then for middle tiers, you can think, just think about middling teams in each conference. Those teams would then be in the middle tier, then your bottom tier. Nobody that's worth a damn. But I thought what was cool about this, Kirby, is one thing that I do miss about college football even like 4-team playoff, but really when it became expanded. I know that we're just 1 year into this, but I would say that this started really happening around 2016, and as we got further in the 4-team playoff, is that making a New Year's Six Bowl used to really mean something.
Oh, yeah.
It used to be the crown jewel for a lot of programs. Like, we're not talking about winning a national title this year, but if we can make the Sugar Bowl or we can make the Cotton Bowl, like, that would be freaking awesome.
We can beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, like, that used to be a crown jewel for a lot of these teams. And even just making a bowl game, I feel like that before the playoff era started, there was a lot of realistic expectations for these programs, and they kind of had an idea of what would be a success and what wasn't. But then, of course, the playoff gets introduced. There's more opportunity to win a national title. That there shifts the expectations for these programs. So I think that if you put these teams in different tiers and you knew going into the season, our main goal is to do this, then there we go. I got a call from the boss man. So,
Ooh, very important call. Yes, I think one of the issues that I have with this, and one of the main
we got a loaded show, Brooks. Let me just go ahead and tell you. Look, we just hit off on the Notre Dame USC rivalry, that being at jeopardy, which that's sad. Certainly, we're going to do some more.
Hey, what are they doing to our beloved game of football?
I know, right? It's ridiculous. I mean, this is a rivalry that has existed for almost 100 years, Brooks.
100 years. And there's been some damn good football games in that one. I mean, good Lord. What's going on? Lincoln Riley goes out west one time. Now he's ducking comp. What's going on?
You know what?
Oh, God. You got one tough out-of-conference game, and it's too much for Lincoln Riley? I'll hang up and listen, boys. Y'all have a good one.
Always good to hear from the boss man.
Hell yeah, dude. He really likes the Notre Dame USC rivalry.
You know, he brings up a great point, though. Lincoln Riley doesn't have a Heisman contending quarterback. Now we got to duck Notre Dame.
That is the spin we should have taken.
Man, that is the spin we should have taken.
That's a very irresponsible spin we should have gone through.
Maybe,
Lincoln Riley, you are a coward.
This is it. This is it right here. Just to kind of reverse topics. I know that we were talking about a relegation league coming to college football, but this is the real thing. Lincoln Riley has 27 commits in this year's class. A lot of questions from us of, is he going to hold on to all of these? Is this actually going to solidify as a top 5 class by the end of the year? And we just got done talking about how this rivalry is going to play this year, but next year, we don't know. I think this is all about whether or not Lincoln Riley ends up with a top 5 class or top 10 class. If these guys actually stick to their word and actually commit to the Trojans.
Ooh, that is a tinfoil hat theory. I like that.
If it ends up teetering off like his other ones have, Notre Dame,
sorry,
traveling, jet lag, all that stuff. It's really expensive, man. We just can't be doing this anymore.
You got a lot of nerve, Lincoln Riley, ruining the sport and the sanctity of this game. But no, back to this relegation league. I think the biggest issue you're going to run with is how do you do this across all sports? Because we've talked about it all before. The Georgia football team is not on the same level as the Georgia basketball team.
Sure.
Or the Vanderbilt baseball team is not on the same level as the Vanderbilt football team. Like, you run across this all different ways. So is this a sole football relegation league, and then the problem with that, it becomes like you're at the point now where football is going to become more and more of its own separate entity from college sports every single day, which I think becomes a very slippery slope. I think another issue that it doesn't really attend to is the fact that, yes, you can create more meaningful and you can set a better baseline of expectations for middling teams to be like, hey, we did a really great job. We had a bowl game this year. We had a New Year's Six Bowl. It was a really great year for us. You're then going to run into the little guy's never going to get a chance here. The group of 5 never gets a chance in the playoff, and this is unfair. Indiana can have a great season like they just did and still not get the attention that they deserve. Indiana was a playoff team in 2024, but they were relegated to the middling league. So stuff like this is where it's like, I think it's going to run into some issues.
Yeah, I'm not exactly 100% for this, but it just kind of like made me start thinking about some of the positives that could happen if this were ever a thing. Like another point of this, like if you're in the middle tier or if you're in the bottom tier or even if you're in the top tier, it automatically sets boundaries for who you are exactly competing against this season, who you need to be out recruiting right now, or who you need to be playing better than this season. Like, who is your comp? Like, you already know who your comp is going to be for this national title in every single league. Like, what do I have to do to make it up to the next league? Or what do I need to avoid to make sure I don't get demoted to one of these other leagues? Like, I think it kind of sets these boundaries. It'd be kind of cool to know, like, all right, here's the standard. It's Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, all those schools. Like, those are who we are competing against. Now, I think you kind of already get that anyways for a national title. Like, we all enter a season kind of already knowing who is going to be competing for a national title anyways. But specifically for these middling programs and for maybe some of those lesser than programs, they kind of know who are they competing against. And maybe you could even get like, which it wouldn't happen because you get promoted so much, but you could get like these dynasties in a separate league or whatever it is. Like, they're always good in this division, but if they ever get promoted, they can't compete. I just think it'd be somewhat cool, but I'm with you. It's a lot more than just that. I mean, I think that obviously it automatically strips the tradition, the DNA of college football, and everybody having a chance, that being put in air quotes, of they have a chance to win a national title this year when you probably don't, but everybody has the same goal essentially in the same season.
Yeah, and I think another issue would be the TV deals and all the teams saying, "Oh, we're not going to be national championship competitors this year, so we're not even going to show up." Like, it's all about the money. It's all about putting asses in seats, which is why the Bill Belichick era is already a resounding and incredible success.
Kirby, we're coming up on the date though. June 1st.
It doesn't matter.
We're coming up on the date. He could be fired June 1st.
If Bill Belichick never coaches a game for the North Carolina Tar Heels, the administration or the era, the Belichick era, the regime, whatever you want to call it, has been a success.
Oh, really?
Would you like to know why?
I do want to know why.
Because despite raising season ticket prices by 25%, UNC has sold out of their season tickets for the first time in a long time for that university. It's all about putting asses in seats. It's all about getting eyes on your program. It's all about making dollars. It's why the Deion Sanders regime is 13-12 in 2 seasons, and he is renowned as perhaps one of the top 10 coaches in college football. People were comparing him to Nick Saban at the time because of what he did to Colorado. North Carolina is going to be a team that everyone talks about this year, despite whatever they do on the road. Now, they might not be very good. They might go 6-6. It might be a disaster, but the reality is people are going to talk about them, and that is something that you can't say about UNC for the last 5 or 6 years.
So it's the Deion Sanders era at UNC is exactly what this is, because anytime you talk about Deion Sanders and him being a success, or like what you want to deem as a success for Deion Sanders at Colorado, it's that the enrollment rate has jumped up. People are attending football games. Now, obviously, they're getting a lot of more publicity as well, and that had to do with his son being in the program as well. Travis Hunter, a former 5-star, one of the best players in the country, he was there as well. So that created it. Now, Bill Belichick is creating that because he's the head coach, and he is one of the greatest of all time when it comes to coaching football. But who is this star player? Because I think that also played a massive role in Colorado getting a lot of pub during the season and then being included in some of these primetime games, whereas North Carolina doesn't have this Shedeur Sanders or this Travis Hunter on their roster right now.
No, they absolutely do not. But they have a 24-year-old girlfriend that will I would almost venture to say they will consistently be in the headlines throughout the year. And we saw, there were a couple of rumors, she's banned from the facility. No, she's not banned from the facility, all those things. Stuff like this is going to trickle in all throughout the season. And as much as it probably bothers the presidents and the boosters of the school, they're then going to see, wait, we sold out a home game? wait, we're getting this much. We made this much on ticket sales this year. We're getting this much publicity. Our aggregates on social media online are all up. I guess we'll have to take it.
And this is why it was foolish to even think that Bill Belichick could be fired by June 1st. And if you're not familiar with this, his buyout drops by, I think, $9 million, taking it all the way down to $1 million on June 1st before he even coaches a football game for North Carolina. There was kind of some buzz around that, this might just be a cop-out of we hire Bill Belichick, we get all these suckers to get these season tickets, and then we kick him out the door and we move forward with our program. He never really wanted to be a college football coach, but this got his name back out there in the atmosphere. Maybe he goes back to the NFL. But this right here is why he won't be fired, because Bill Belichick just sold out your season tickets. His name alone. That's what sold out the season tickets in North Carolina. Absolutely. It wasn't the former second-string quarterback that you got out of the transfer portal that might be your starting quarterback this year. It's not that. It's the fact that there's expected improvement in this program because of him, and his name alone is going to get people to clue in on the Tar Heels. Like, I'll probably watch more North Carolina football this year than I ever have in my lifetime because I want to see what's going on there. And so his name being there, it still has to be there for people to still be excited about it. Even if you hire Steve Belichick and it's like, this is the heir, this is the next one, this is going to be the next great coach in football, Bill's name is the one that's paying these bills. Bill's name is the one that is getting people into this stadium, so you got to keep him around. He has to be the head coach of your football program.
Bill pays the bills. Now, there are still a lot of questions surrounding this team, which transitions us into our next segment, the college football questionnaire. Wouldn't you know it, North Carolina is the first team on our questionnaire. The biggest question I have for them outside of the other ones that we'll get to is, who the hell is going to play quarterback for you? I watched some clips from their spring game of what I could and didn't really get much because you don't have jersey numbers on that, but it didn't look great. It didn't look like UNC is going to have a competent passing game, and that's something for a school that had Mitch Trubisky, say what you want about his NFL career, he was a great college quarterback. Mitch Trubisky, Sam Howell, Drake May, like the last decade of North Carolina football has seen some really, really good quarterback play, and it's not looking like it's going to be that this year.
Yeah, if you remember correctly, they got Gio Lopez out of the transfer portal, the South Alabama quarterback. It was kind of rumored. There was an SEC school that was rumored to have some interest in him, and I can't remember who it was, but Gio Lopez was kind of a hot name for a little bit in the transfer portal, and North Carolina was the one that ended up nabbing him. So I would imagine that he's going to be the front runner to be their starting quarterback there, and that's who they'll roll with. So honestly, not a bad option for them to have. He was successful at South Alabama, and I feel like that's a good step forward. It's not too much of a stretch to say that you could go from playing at South Alabama and then having a lot of success in North Carolina. So they certainly have what seems like a viable option there at the very least.
Yeah. Next question I have for him. Bill Belichick is renowned as one of the most brilliant defensive minds in the sport, revolutionized the way the Browns, the Patriots, all of those things. How does this North Carolina defense improve under him? You'd have to imagine if you take this defensive mastermind as a head coach and put them at head coach of a college level, you would expect to see some returns on that. So I'm very interested to see how this defense improves.
Now, what can I remember is, like, obviously Kirby Smart's first year at Georgia was a 6-6 record in the regular season. It wasn't that great. Nobody expected it to be that great because the roster wasn't at the level to be competing in the top tiers of the SEC just yet. What I do remember is it felt like there was just instant improvement defensively. It felt like there was already steps forward on that side of the ball because Kirby Smart was now coaching these guys up. He was implementing his game plans, and he was doing all of his things that he had learned from Nick Saban. And now you're going to do the same thing with Bill Belichick, a guy that's been doing this for many, many years in the NFL, has had a lot of success coaching up great defenses at the professional level. So it may not be a top 20 defense, of course, but I think that you'll definitely see improvements where they're not giving up 70 points to James Madison next year.
No, God, I actually watched that game. It was tough. Next question I have for them is, how do you fare in this 2025 schedule? I look at sometimes an ACC schedule as very similar to a Big 12 schedule where you look at it and you go, I could see them losing this many games. I could see them winning all those games. They play Charlotte, Richmond, UCF, TCU, Clemson, you have to assume is a loss, Cal, maybe, Virginia, Syracuse, Stanford, Wake Forest, Duke, NC State. Like 9-3, 8-4, maybe even if you have a really great year. 10-2 seems pretty attainable on this, but as does 6-6 or 7-5 or God forbid 5-7.
And this is a question that we'll definitely have to go back and look at like middle of the season or at the end of the season, because when it comes to a conference like the ACC and the Big 12 falls into this as well. When you're talking about a team like North Carolina, you're really just trying to measure them against the rest of the teams that are in that similar of a tier. Like NC State could be one of these, or Virginia Tech could be one of these, but you really don't know how good any of those programs are. And if North Carolina is the best one amongst that pack, it's going to be a successful season for them. But if Virginia Tech decides to be competitive and they're going to win 9 games or 8 games this year, and North Carolina is still towards the bottom of that, but you really just, it's hard to try and guess and try and track where those teams are going to be in the offseason. But when you get to the middle of the season, you'll kind of have an idea of like, okay, this is the really bad team in this conference.
Exactly. All right, question 4 and 5 together. How much of these external distractions can you limit? We know what we're talking about here. And question 5 is, do you even want to limit them? Do you want people to stop talking about the North Carolina program and, Bill Belichick's 24-year-old girlfriend? Because like we just said, they just sold out season tickets, even if they were a quarter priced higher than they ever were. So do you really want these distractions to stop? It is weird, though, to think of a Bill Belichick team, which all throughout the Patriots was no fun, no nonsense, you hate to play here, but damn it, you win, is now like, who's this 24-year-old chick that's running the program, and elderly abuse and all these things that are being thrown the way of the UNC program.
Yeah, I think there's some things that would get very tiresome and also very annoying because I think people are already acting like they're fed up with Jordan Hudson and his girlfriend and all the publicity that has been around them. And we're not even in the season yet, but also that publicity it's going to continue to be talked about. It's going to continue to have UNC in the headlines. It's going to continue to be written about, talked about on shows like this, to where even if you are bad and even if people are projecting hatred towards you because of it, does it really matter if people are still talking about you?
Exactly. All publicity is good publicity. Next team, Clemson. Question 1 I have for them. Is Cade Klubnik a top 5 quarterback in the sport? We've seen some things where he's a Heisman frontrunner. We've seen some things where he's one of the best returning quarterbacks. Can Cade Klubnik give you top 5 quarterback play this season?
I think, but I don't know because I feel this way about a lot of the quarterbacks going into this year. Like if you just kind of rattle off the names, Drew Aller, we know the story there. It's been back and forth since he got there. Since he earned the starting job at Penn State, it's been back and forth. Garrett Nussmeier, can we eliminate turnovers? Are we going to continue to be this great play, holy hell play type of quarterback every single Saturday? Cade Klubnik kind of falls into this because it's great you beat up on some bad teams, but then we kind of struggle here. We struggle against Louisville. We have some spurts where we don't look too good, but then we compete our balls off against Texas, and we're one of the reasons why we almost beat Texas, and we had somewhat of a comeback. And then it's Lenore Sellers. We've had our conversations about him of, can the offensive line hold up? Can he cut down on the fumbles? Can he do all of these things? Carson Beck is coming off of a major injury. Like a lot of these quarterbacks going in. Arch Manning, we've seen a little bit of him, and not really against SEC comp consistently. Like that's kind of like the entire quarterback class this year is, I think so. Like I'm just projecting. Like there's really not a long line of history for any of these guys saying, this guy is going to be the one to win the Heisman, or this guy is going to be the one to be the first overall pick.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting for that part. And I think that you don't have to have top 5 play from Cade Klubnik this year. If he's anywhere in that top 10 range, if he just plays not even above it, really, really solid quarterback play for you, Clemson's going to be in a good situation.
Consistent. That's all you need out of Cade. If you get consistent quarterback play from him, you're going to be in good shape.
This plays into question 2. How much better overall has this roster gotten? Look, I've seen the numbers. They're returning 80% of production. It's more than almost anyone in the Power 5. They're expected to blow through the ACC. They're going to be one of the most experienced teams in college football. I see all that. I get why people are high on them. But if you're experienced and does that make you faster? Does that make you stronger? Does that make you more talented? That's the question I have for Clemson. There's no doubt they're going to be one of the more cohesive rosters out there. That's fine. But if you're still the 15th most talented team, you're not going to do a deep run in the college football playoff like you assumed. You might not even win the conference this year just because of sheer talent alone. I'm not saying they're bottom feeders when it comes to talent, but I think it's fair to say that they're not on the upper echelon when it comes to talented rosters.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I feel that way about Clemson. I think they are the best team in the ACC. It's the reason why I have them ranked inside the top 4 in my post-spring college football playoff rankings, and I think that they will earn a first-round bye, more than likely, if I had to assume. But it's all dependent upon their matchup in the playoff because I think there's quite a few teams that I would favor over Clemson today, not knowing anything that's going to happen this season, but today just looking at the rosters, knowing that Clemson has recruited like a top 15 school in the nation, and that's kind of where they are. They might be ninth best roster overall. So really it's all about the matchup as far as playoff success. But I could very well believe that they'd be a first-round exit or a second-round exit with a bye.
Yeah. Next one. What do you look like in week 1? Now, week 1 is week 1. It doesn't seem that important. But, JWill, would you be surprised if I told you that Clemson in their last 2 season openers has lost both of those games by 3 scores each?
Ooh. Who was it 2 years ago?
Duke, 28-7, got stomped.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that football game.
So they have not looked good in week 1. Obviously, you play LSU this year, so that's going to be a big, big game for you. Now, obviously, both of these last 2 games for you have been out-of-conference games. You can get your head bashed in and still make the ACC, still make the college football playoff, but if you don't look good in week 1 and you've got everyone hyping you up as this national championship contender and some people say you're the number 1 team in college football, like, week 1's very important this year.
Week 1 against LSU in which Death Valley?
I believe it's in Clemson.
Okay, so that helps them a little bit.
Let me double check, though.
We get to run down the hill. We get a little pregame hype. We get the buzz going in the stadium while we rub that rock. Like
I was actually at that stadium this week.
Oh, really?
It's cool.
Did it feel that way? Was it just like, man, I'm in greatness right now? I just want to run down that hill full speed.
The hill, I will say, looks cool. I do get some high school stadium vibes from it, however.
Overrated. It's overrated.
Ooh.
I'll say it. It's overrated. Run down the hill's overrated.
I'm going to get in trouble for agreeing with you.
That's okay. Just say you're sorry.
It is in South Carolina.
Okay.
But yeah, that's week 1 is very important to this team that traditionally the last 3 seasons has not looked good in week 1. Final question I have for you. Are you a true playoff team or a phony in disguise? We've seen they're a playoff team. The SMUs, the Indianas, the Boise States, not Arizona States, but teams there's like, yeah, they're in the playoff. Yeah, they're in the dance, but we're not really buying it. I think you could even argue that Clemson was this last year, despite, the strong showing that they had against Texas. They were down 21 points at the end of the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder, is Clemson really legit this year, or is it just, they're here because they're the best team in a dying conference. They won the championship. They had the most talent. They had the most experienced roster, but they're not a national title contender.
I think that's how people are going to view the ACC champion for the rest of time. Like, no matter what you do, no matter how dominant you look, you're always going to be viewed as, oh, great, you beat the crap out of some ACC teams. Like, good job, man, but nobody actually believes you're a real contender. I mean, it was this way when Trevor Lawrence was a quarterback at Clemson, when Deshaun Watson was a quarterback at Clemson. That was what everybody would say. People still say it to this day. I mean, we were saying it last year, and we continue to say about this conference how it's why we believe, or why some of us believe that Clemson is just going to roll through this conference, because it's not that great up to top to bottom. So I think that's just always going to be the belief about the ACC. No matter who comes out of that conference, no matter who is the conference champion, it's always going to be, do you really deserve to be here? You just kind of got gifted a spot this playoff, and we don't really see you winning the national title this year.
Team number 3, the Florida Gators. Question 1 I have for you is, how secure is Billy Napier's job? We had the assumption last year that he was on his last leg heading into 2024. And after the Miami loss and the Texas A&M loss, we were like, this guy's cooked. And they started winning games. DJ Lagway looked really good, to the point now where they've got a lot of momentum coming in. Like, some people are putting him inside the top 10. So my question is, if you get through the first few weeks of the season, it's like, not really sure about this Florida team, how secure is Billy Napier's job?
It's as secure as DJ Lagway's college football career. Like, however great that is, that's how you'll be able to point and say, okay, Billy Napier is going to be the head coach at Florida this year because DJ Lagway threw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. Like, okay, Billy keeps his job. But if DJ Lagway, I don't know, something happens or he doesn't live up to these expectations, or like this injury on his shoulder kind of flares back up and he misses 6 games and now Florida's staring down another 6-6 season or whatever it is, then might be in jeopardy. I think it really is just about what happens with DJ Lagway this year. That's as secure as his job is, because that's essentially what Florida told us last year of, don't worry, you got the vote of confidence, when really that vote of confidence is number 2 is our starting quarterback now, this 5-star that we got. So, yeah, we want to keep you because we want to keep that guy. We want to make sure that guy stays a Florida Gator.
Next question is, how do you fare in these 6 games? Listen to this, dude. Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU, Miami, Georgia. That's half of their regular season schedule right there. That is a bitch.
It is.
Like, there's nothing else you can say about like how you fare in that is going to largely dictate how people view your season. If you go 3-3 in that, it's going to be fine season. If you go 4-2, really good season. If you go 2-4, 1-5, like Billy might be cooked. So that is going to those 6 games will dictate Billy Napier's season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that these 2 seasons last year, because it's the same schedule, just some venues have been flopped now, or flip-flopped, I should say. Like, the fact that your job is hanging on by a thread right now, and you're also having to go up against one of the toughest conferences or toughest schedules in all of college football in back-to-back years, and this is the year where it's like, we got to go. Like, we got to see some success. Like, this is the year, Billy. What are you going to do with it? We got all these weapons for DJ to throw to, and you got this quarterback, and you got one of the best running back duos in the conference. What is the defense going to look like? I don't know. It didn't look great in the spring. So if that's the case, you probably don't hold up too well against that game, against that 6-game stretch or whatever it is.
We just talked about it. What does your defense look like is also a very important question because, yeah, it's fun to have a high-powered, high-flying offense. It's hard to win games when you're scoring 40 and 50 and high 30s every week. Like, that is a tough game to win.
Just ask Mark Richt.
Yeah.
Just ask Mark Richt how hard it is to win games every single week despite scoring 35 points or 38 points when your defense is also giving up 35 to 38 points. You're probably not going to fare well in those matchups. You're probably going to end up going 10-2 at best in those types of, if that's your format, if that's your formula for winning a game of, we have to score 40 points or we're probably going to lose. And based on the spring game, that might end up being the formula this year. I don't think their defense is going to be that bad, but there's some really good quarterbacks in this conference. So it's not out of the question to think that there's quite a few offenses that they'll face this year that are capable of putting up 35-plus points every Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very long season if they do that. Question number 4 is, are your wide receiver weapons and running back weapons as advertised? We've heard a lot of really good things about them. If they are, Florida's offense is going to be scary this year, so that's going to be something to look forward to.
Yeah, and they look good in the spring game without DJ. He did not play. It was the backup quarterback. It's your second and third string quarterbacks, and you got a dude putting up 200 receiving yards and over 200 rushing yards.
Man.
Florida's offensive line is good. I think they're going to have one of the better O-line units in the conference this year, and that's a good thing because we just got done talking about how DJ Lagway has already dealt with multiple injuries at Florida, and you got to protect him like that. And then also with these running backs, I think they'll have an easy way of going. About things. But the wide receivers is the biggest question. You're going to be relying on a true freshman this year, but you also got some vets in there, and I think that's the biggest upgrade for them is the wide receiver room. So I think that the offense will be okay.
Yeah, man, you must be reading my notes because you segued me right into the next question perfectly every time. Final question I have for Florida. I'm not going to question how good DJ Lagway is. Is he as advertised? Is he a Heisman contender? Because I think that we saw enough of DJ Lagway last year to know that he is going to be a very talented quarterback for the Florida Gators. He's probably the best quarterback Florida's had since Kyle Trask in 2020. Like, it's been that long, and I would say he's probably going to be better than him. My question is, what is the durability of DJ Lagway? Because we saw last year in the Georgia game, Florida was beating Georgia until DJ Lagway got hurt. DJ Lagway right now has been battling a shoulder injury where he couldn't throw in the spring game. There was a lot of time in the offseason where he supposedly hadn't thrown. Billy Napier says he's going to be fine by the start of the season. DJ Lagway got banged up last year a good bit too as well. If DJ Lagway misses, 2 or 3 games this year, we just ran through it. You play half of your schedule is killers, or at least teams that are going to be tough to beat. You can't miss your starting quarterback for a week or so, or, he's dealing with a shoulder injury right now. He's not 100%. Like, DJ Lagway has to be 100% of the time for this to go well for Florida.
And Florida doesn't have one of these prospects in the waiting. Like, when DJ Lagway's time at Florida runs up, this guy is going to be the one that steps into it. They have Harrison Bailey, who was the former Tennessee quarterback.
Shout out Marietta High School.
The former quarterback of many schools, who is, I believe, on his 6th year now, his 6th program, or not 6th program, but 6th year in college football. His last stop is at Florida, and then they also have Clay Millen. Neither one of those guys were recruited by Billy Napier and put in the holding room saying, you're up next, we're going to help you develop and learn this offense. Like, this was a fortunate thing that Georgia had last year when Carson Beck got hurt, because while Gunnar Stockton was not this 5-star quarterback, it was a quarterback that Georgia wanted and one that they hand-selected and one that their offensive coordinator absolutely loved and one that had been learning this offense for multiple seasons. So when their starting quarterback went down, they really didn't miss a beat in the SEC championship game. But you're talking about 2 guys at Florida who weren't these former 5-stars, weren't these guys that you necessarily handpicked out of high school, and guys that either just got here this year or got here last year and are just like, that's a body in the room.
In defense of Harrison Bailey, I do think he was a 5-star.
You're right. He was a former 5-star.
Now,
but
that's 4 teams and 5 seasons ago, so it's not necessarily the same prestige. But I think people forget that DJ Lagway wasn't Florida's starter heading into the 2024 season.
No.
It was Graham Mertz. And in fact, had it not been for a phantom ankle sprain in Neyland Stadium,
would have never saw him.
Graham Mertz would have been your starter for the majority of the season unless things got so bad where they were forced to go to DJ Lagway. I think one way or another DJ Lagway starts last year, but you've had durability issues at quarterback for 2 years in a row. You were fortunate enough last year that the guy on your bench was the supposed savior of your team. He's not on the bench this year, so durability is a big concern I have for DJ Lagway and the Florida Gators. Final team I have, the Michigan Wolverines. My first question for you, what are the expectations at Michigan now? I feel like in the Harbaugh eras it was, we got to beat Ohio State, we got to compete for national titles, we got to be elite year in and year out. Then they won that national title and you kind of had this euphoric, we did it. You know, whatever happens in 2024, the entire coaching staff got wiped out. Harbaugh's not here. We're in first year, Sherrod Moore. It's fine. I think you're a year 2 now. What do you expect from this Michigan team? I think you're dumb and naive if you want a national title, but I also think you're selling yourself short. If you're like, yeah, we're cool with 8-4 every year. What do Michigan fans want? That's my question.
I think you should be cool with 8-4. I think that should be
7,
more than
right.
okay this year. That's just kind of
is that what you want for the rest of
obviously, the fans probably don't want that. I mean, it's tough going from winning a national title to now. It feels like you've hit the reset button on your program and you're kind of starting back over. But that's just the reality of the program right now. I mean, you've gone 2 years now of losing a multitude of NFL draft prospects and really good football players. And it's great that you have Bryce Underwood now as your starting quarterback, or who we think will be the starting quarterback for them. But there's going to be growing pains. I mean, he's a true freshman. And this isn't a guy that exactly ran an offense in high school. I mean, we watched a highlight film before from his high school days. I mean, it's a lot of, I'm the best athlete on the field. That's how I'm going to treat myself. And he really wasn't utilized all that much in the offense. So there's going to be some growing pains with him. And I think there's going to be some growing pains with this offense as a whole. And you have a game against Oklahoma this year. So
dude, you're just wiping out all my questions.
Maybe I'm just leading you into these perfect, like I'm just lobbing you up every time. Just call me Jason Kidd.
We got some good chemistry.
We do. You know, we're building on it.
But is Bryce Underwood the truth? That's question 2. Like, how good is this freshman going to be? Obviously, you expect, like you said, there will be growing pains. There will be moments where you go, ooh, that was a freshman throw. That was a decision to do that. Like, you are not used to playing high-level college football. You expect that. But is there at least enough upside to say, oh, this kid's going to be a problem in a year or so? This kid's going to be really good in 2 to 3 seasons. Because if you don't see that, you know, what's going on here then?
D. Nelly's hitting on it. You better get an ROI immediately on this one because you flaunted it, you made it known, and that, hey, we paid for this guy to come here. We got the deal done. We summed up all this money to make sure that Bryce Underwood ends up as a Michigan Wolverine and doesn't end up down at LSU. We took that one. This one is ours. And so, yeah, you better get an ROI or else there's going to be some fans that are pretty upset of like, why did we do all of this? Like, this is what we're getting. So it doesn't have to be this perfect season of this guy looks like the best thing at the position or anything like that. But there better be some moments, even as a true freshman, where it's like, this guy's going to be fine. He's like, if he stays the course, if he stays at Michigan for the next 3 years and he does all the right things, this guy is going to be a dude. But if it's just kind of middling and it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere or we're not seeing stages of progression week by week, then it might get a little shady.
Next question I have for you, and I circled this game in particular because I think it's very important. It's going to be a good measuring stick for what you are as a team. How do you fare in Norman, Oklahoma? You hosted Texas last year. Now, Texas turned out to be a top 3 team in the country, and you got your ass kicked at home. Looked very bad, not good. You're going to play another SEC team this year in their home turf. Now, we can all agree that Oklahoma is not as challenging of a team that Texas is. But if you go there and you go up against what we would say is a middling SEC team right now today, and you don't look good against them, well, not only are the SECs greater than the Big Ten fans going to start firing up the chats, but that's going to look bad to where, man, we just went up against the 7th best team, and it's a week 2 matchup. So, I mean, there's still a lot of time to adjust and act accordingly, but that's a very important matchup for Michigan.
It's very important for Michigan. It's very important for Underwood because you're going up against a defensive-minded head coach as well in Venables that weekend. And Venables has done some great things with that defense. It was a huge question in his first year, but I think he's really settled some things out on that side of the ball, and you can now tell that Venables is the head coach of that football program because they play like it. So having to match up against that defense early on in the season, I think you're going to get some early signs of whether or not this guy is a dude or a gamer or whatnot, or just kind of know like, hey, this season might need to chalk it up just a little bit. And, again, going back to what I said of this is going to be a season of growing pains, but that'll be a game where you know, like, is there signs that this guy is great? Even if Michigan gets blown out, you'll be able to tell, is Bryce Underwood going to end up being the answer or at least get a little bit of an indicator?
Yeah, I think you need at least something to hang your hat on in that game, even if it is getting blown out, having Bryce Underwood play. Question 4, how will your defense look after losing pretty much all of its great players? The remaining players from that 2023 roster were Mason Graham, Will Johnson, I'm forgetting the other guys. Kenneth Grant, like those guys held your defense together in 2024. They're not here. 2025, they're gone. The skeleton of 2023 that won that national title is no longer here. You are in a new era of Michigan football. What does your defense look like? That's going to be very important because I think it's fair to say that defense kind of held that team together last year. It kind of put them in different situations. So what does it look like now that the 3 stars are gone from it?
Yeah, I mean, it won you that Ohio State game because even your offense wasn't moving the ball down the field. It was Michigan. I mean, that defense was making plays and making life really hard on Will Howard and the rest of that offense. So the defense is certainly a big factor of this, and it's why I was mentioning beforehand of, like, that's why I think it should be okay. Like, 8-4 should be more than okay this season because you lost the core pieces of that defense that have been around for multiple seasons and have kind of been the heartbeat of that football team. And I know they have Justice Haynes as a running back who got some burn in Alabama, and that was a highly profiled recruit coming out of high school in the state of Georgia. Now he's at Michigan, and he's going to be the number 1 option. And maybe him and Bryce Underwood can figure some things out and get this offense rolling. But I think I agree that the defense is probably the bigger question for me.
Absolutely it is. All right. Final question I have for the Michigan Wolverines. And all 4 questions will be viewed as irrelevant. They won't matter if you can answer this one question yes. Can you make it 4 in a row? You've beat Ohio State 3 years in a row. You beat them sometimes when you shouldn't have. That's been your kind of catalyst. That's what Sherrone Moore could hang his hat on in the 2024 regular season. Now, we know what they did to Alabama following that, but if you beat Ohio State, questions 1 through 4 do not matter because you know what? We went in there again and we beat a team that, frankly, everyone's going to say that they're better than us, they're more talented than us, they're going to be looking for blood. All the things we've heard for the last 2 or 3 years, if we do it again, it doesn't matter. So can you beat Ohio State 4 years in a row? Game is in Ann Arbor, by the way.
4 years in a row also means that there's an entire class of Ohio State players that never beat Michigan.
There already is.
I know, but
they never played them in 2020.
Good point. But 4 years, that's a long time.
There's fifth-year seniors that never beat Michigan. There's 23-year-olds that have been playing football for 7 years. Never beat Michigan.
Man, it's a good thing they won the Natty last year, or else their life would be hell.
Oh, I mean, Michigan fans are still trying to make it hell. All right, moving on to the next segment. JWill, you have some interesting quotes from Hugh Freeze to read.
Oh, yeah.
Would you mind setting this up for us?
Man, I mean, just feels like we're already in the middle of the season. Hugh Freeze having some interesting quotes. I mean, if we were doing this last year after some of his post-game comments about his quarterback, Peyton Thorne, how he's making stupid decisions. He's turning the ball over. We can't win football games when he's turning the ball over. Well, Hugh Freeze went on record this weekend. I believe this was after the golf tournament that they did with a lot of the SEC coaches. He's doing an interview afterwards. And the biggest quote from this was, "I'm not a fool. We've got to go to a bowl game." As far as what the expectations of this Auburn Tiger program is heading into this year is, we got to make a bowl game.
Before we do that, I just want to correct myself. This would be 5 in a row.
Oh.
Because they did in 21, 22, 23, 24. This would be 5. So all the Ohio State fans that are watching this after, please do not come get me in chat. I'm sorry. Anyways, sorry for interrupting, Jay. Will you read that sentence to me?
Yeah. I am not a fool. We've got to go to a bowl game. Basically, Hugh Freeze is saying, our goal this year for Auburn is 6-6 at worst.
Now, in fairness to Hugh Freeze, and we've talked about it on the show before, the most important thing for us is maintaining consistency. And since he has stepped foot in Auburn, Alabama, Hugh Freeze has done nothing but try to undercut expectations. I mean, he did it the first press conference he was there where he was like, guys, remember Kirby Smart? It took him like 4 or 5 years to reach his first national title. And it was
Coach, it was year 2.
No. You guys need to check your facts. It took Kirby Smart 7 years to reach the first national title.
A decade?
Kirby Smart's been on the Georgia roster for a decade before he had a winning season, guys. Let's temper expectations here. He did it last year, I'm pretty sure, when people were talking about the Auburn team, like, hey, Auburn's looking really good this year. Peyton Thorne might be the answer. We might win. We might 8-4, 9-3. And he's like, guys, too early, too soon. So
Auburn was the dark horse selection last year in the SEC of, hey, watch out. Hugh Freeze got them boys rolling maybe. They might sneak in there and win 8 games. And Hugh Freeze himself was like, easy now. Like, don't be doing me dirty, all right? Like, we still got a ways to go around here before we start talking about winning 8 games, all right?
So I don't want to necessarily torch Hugh Freeze for once again doing this and saying, look, we just need to get to 6-6. And let's be fair. A national title potential playoff contender last season printed shirts after making a bowl-eligible game. So let's not trash bowl games too much. And, hey, we're big on that bowl games still matter.
Oh,
so you know what?
I'm with it.
I support Hugh Freeze. And I was planning to trash him the entire time for this and just talk about how much of a bumbling idiot he is. But that is a fair comment. You're going into year 3. You're like, look, bowl game is a baseline. It's a successful mark for us. I want to temper expectations because I've been doing that since I got here. So I'm fine with these comments so far.
Well, Kirby had more quotes. It didn't end there. That was not the final quote from Hugh Freeze while doing this interview.
Oh.
He then went on to say, look, I inherited a program that didn't have a top 25 recruiting class for 4 years.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's look at these notes here. 2019, Auburn, 13th ranked recruiting class.
Inside the top 25.
2020, 8th ranked recruiting class. That's
inside the top 25.
2021, Brian Harsin is the head coach. 18th ranked recruiting class. That's inside the top 25. 2022, post Brian Harsin, still inside the top 25. Signed the 21st class. Hugh Freeze signed the 19th and 18th class last year. I didn't do 2025 because we're 3 years in at that point. So that's not true, Hugh Freeze. You've had top 25 classes 4 years leading up to you. In fact, the last time Auburn didn't sign a top 25 class, you were entering your final year as head coach of Briarcrest High School in 2004, coaching one Michael Orr. So this idea that this Auburn team, they were doing nothing recruiting-wise, and look, I came in and I've got us all elevated. Well, they signed a top 10 class 3 years before you got there. And by the way, they had been in the national title 10 years prior. So that is a lie.
That's probably a little bit of a shock for some people of knowing, oh, Hugh Freeze was the guy that got to go with Michael Orr to Ole Miss. Yes, that was him.
That was
the
him.
guy that.
So,
my star offensive lineman's going to Ole Miss. Well, so am I. And yes, that started Hugh Freeze's very memorable college coaching career. But
started as a tight ends coach, I believe, went somewhere else, then came back as the head coach. Prodigal son's coming home, and then a couple phone calls later, and Hugh Freeze no longer has a job. Quite a few phone calls.
I will give Hugh credit here of, they have recruited inside of the top 25. Probably haven't had a top 25 roster, though. Like
that's fair.
The recruiting rankings can say what they want, but, I mean, going into the season now, when Bo Nix was there, that's a different story. Like, when you're going back to 2019, that's a little bit of a different story because people were evaluating Auburn differently because Bo Nix was there, and they were a top 25-ish team during that time, but the Harsin years, and especially after the Harsin years, especially after Harsin got fired, that was definitely not a top 25 roster.
No,
anymore.
it was not.
So he's
at
fair
all.
in saying that. I had a bad roster. Yes, you are completely right there, but can't be out here lying, coach.
Yeah, you can't be saying that they hadn't inked a top 25 class when literally they've been doing that for 20 years straight. Like, just get and look, I also don't want to baptize him too much, pun intended with Hugh Freeze. Too much just because, you can misspeak. You can say, we didn't have a top 25 roster. Like, when you're a head coach, you have that much running through your mind. I get it, but not a good look, brother.
Well, here's the final one. Or not final one, but one of the last, word-for-word quotes I'll read to you. We should have won some games last year. I shouldn't say we should have. We could have won some games last year.
Ah, yes, the proverbial coulda, not shoulda. Yes, Hugh Freeze, you could have won games last year. In fact, you could have won every single game last year all you had to do was field a team. Auburn could have won every single game last year. The problem was the other team started playing football and they didn't. That's the reality of it. So this whole, we could have won a lot of games last year. Even if you want to say we should have won a lot of games last year. I don't remember Auburn losing many close nail-biters. Yes, there was the Oklahoma game, and that was a disaster.
Yeah.
But, if you want to trade the Oklahoma game for a Texas A&M overtime win, I'd say that's a wash. So the idea that, Auburn was this close, but by the way, we're just trying to get bowl odds. We're just trying to stay above the surface here. That's all we got to do. That is the baseline for success this season. Kind of conflicting if you're Hugh Freeze, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. But my favorite part of this entire interview was he goes on to set these expectations, these low expectations of we want to make a bowl game. I was in a bad situation when I got here. I've had to really do an overhaul of this roster. And he goes on to say, I've recruited inside of the top 10 the last 2 years. Now we're going into year 3. That's when you have all your guys. And then when we really start getting things rolling, and then we could have won some games last year, but we didn't. And then he goes on to do but you know what? My grandkids go to this school. I love the Auburn Tigers, the president of this university. I love him. He's been great to me. My family loves it here. We love the Auburn Tigers, and we want to deliver success and wins to the fans. The Auburn Tiger fans deserve this program to be successful. The quintessential PR kiss ass.
How long is he going to be able to do this before people are just like, bro, knock it off? Because you can do all of that when you win. And there's nothing wrong with praising Jesus and thanking God, but when you do it as like a tie-up to every single thing where it's like, I'm so happy to be where I am, I love my family, I love this, like, brother, win some football games. Like, I don't care who you're thankful for. That's what Auburn fans are starting to get at, I feel like. So it's getting interesting. We're getting into interesting territory with Hugh Freeze right now.
Yes, Hunter, we are aware that Hugh Freeze has cancer. That's here. We're talking over here. We're talking about the football program. We're not talking about Hugh Freeze and, like, downplay anything, but, I mean, we're talking about a guy that is a head coach of a football program giving quotes saying, going into this is year 3, of saying we need to make a bowl game. That's what we're talking about.
Yes, I would like to also at this point wish Hugh Freeze a speedy recovery for cancer. Like, no one wishes cancer upon a head coach. No one's saying –
not wishing ill will on the guy.
I'm not saying, can you believe this? Look, Hugh Freeze has a history of certain things. Hugh Freeze has made multiple comments about his football team this year. I think you can talk about Hugh Freeze, the head coach, Hugh Freeze, his football team, the Auburn Tigers, and, not retract to his medical health. I hope he's fully healthy enough to coach for this season. For the rest of the college football seasons, I hope he retires very healthy and lives a long life. The reality is there are still some things that we have to criticize him for.
Yeah, I feel like it would be malpractice of us not to discuss those quotes, but ooh, seems like we should be on a different course by now, Hugh Freeze. And he is doing a great job. I mean, he's out recruiting Alabama right now in the state. We mentioned that before. He's getting some really good players into that program. And he got Deuce Knight, and he's got the wide receiver room loaded up. And I think the defense is going to be really solid this year. They've got some good football players there. I will give him credit that it is starting to look like a SEC football roster now. He's getting it back into this conversation of these boys look like they can compete with just about anybody. It's not just like, oh, Auburn's on the schedule, like that's a rollover, like we'll be fine anymore. He's getting it back into this conversation where they are relevant, and maybe they will be a contender. But this year, looks like they're just fighting for the Valero Bowl. And you know what? That's okay. If you're the head coach and that's what you feel the expectations are, I'm here for it. I am here for head coaches coming out and saying, like, these are what our expectations are. To hell with what ESPN says or anybody on any of these other networks. To hell what they have to say. I see these boys at practice every single day. I know what my football program is. We're going to make a bowl game. That's what we're trying to do this year.
And honestly, I appreciate the honesty of like, hey, coach, we're in year 3 now. Is it time to start competing for SEC title? Bowl game.
And it makes it easier.
Let me stop you right there. Bowl game.
6 wins. Take it or leave it.
We don't do that. We don't succeed. Everything else is icing on top of the cake or any other fun saying that you'd like to get.
And it makes it easier for us too, because we sit here all the time following the season. Like, we're doing postseason reaction, and it's like, did the Auburn Tigers have a successful season? In our eyes, did they have a successful season under Hugh Freeze? Well, if they make a bowl game, if they win 7 or 8 games, then yeah, they had a successful season based on what Hugh Freeze had to say about his football program in the month of May.
Yeah.
So it sets a standard that we all know because, I mean, we sit here and try and guess like, well, what do the fans think about this? Or like, what is the feeling around the program? What do they think they should do? Well, they have this player out of the portal. The offense feels like it should be taking some steps forward, and the defense has been solid. So I feel like they should win 9 games, and they go and spit out a 5-win season. Whereas now, we know what the baseline is. We know what Auburn is trying to work towards. We know what the goal is, and we now know, was it a success?
And by the way, no one has interacted more, coached more, been around that roster more than Hugh Freeze. So for him to say, hey, bowl game is what we need, I would probably listen to that. We've got a few minutes left in the show, so Jay, we kind of float around doing this topic at the end, but might as well knock it out. South Carolina's 2026 recruiting class. Now, we're very early, and we're big on wait till December, wait till everything lines up. But it's more like, where is the avenue for you to sign a really, really decent class this year?
Yeah, so just to give you guys an update on where South Carolina sits right now, they have 5 total commits. The headliner of that class is JWill Currents, I believe his name is. That is their top recruit. Again, 5 total commits. And it doesn't seem like there's any momentum picking up. Now, what's interesting about all this, and if you don't follow Shane Beamer on Twitter, then it's a bit of an interesting one. I would highly recommend it. Might get a good chuckle every now and then. He teases his own commits. Like, he had a tweet the other day that said, I love getting a 10:30 p.m. FaceTime from a guy that says he wants to be a Gamecock with his pad still on following his spring game in high school. Just got better today, hashtag 2026 glory, hashtag go Gamecocks. Like,
it's too many hashtags.
But he's a hashtag guy. He does hashtag date night. I mean, he loves him some hashtags. So anyways.
He did for that tweet?
So, like, just to kind of give you an update on South Carolina's recent recruiting. So they were in the mix for a little bit for Jared Curtis. They were in his top 6, and then they got cut from the list, and then it was just Georgia and Oregon. So they were in the mix there. Then they get cut. No longer there. Brady Schmiegel was a quarterback in this class who South Carolina was in the Final Four for, I believe. He ends up committing to Michigan. Landon Duckworth is now their top quarterback prospect in the class. He's not expected to go to South Carolina right now. Ryan Mosley is another recruit that they're kind of playing catch-up on. It seems like Georgia is starting to kind of establish themselves as a leader. Ryan Mosley, one of their top prospects, we don't know yet. They got some ground to make up, and they do have an official visit with him at the beginning of June, but not really looking great there. They just recently lost a safety to Clemson. Again, a player that was one of the top recruits on their board did not get him. So we're sitting here heading into June with 5 total commits. Not really sure where the momentum is. Shane Beamer's teasing these supposed silent commits or players that want to go to South Carolina, but where are they? Why aren't they committing to South Carolina? Are they just – I know that people want to take official visits. They want to do all those things, and South Carolina has guys that are going to be taking official visits this year, but where's the momentum coming from for South Carolina?
It seems to me like South Carolina is suffering from its ambition of – Shane Beamer said last year at Media Days, we want to compete for college football playoff appearances. They almost did compete for college football playoff appearances. We want to be with the big dogs. We want to be amongst all these greats. And they came close to doing it. And now it's kind of like, okay, if we're going to play with them on the field, we have to recruit with them on the trail. And I don't think South Carolina has a plan enough to do so yet, and I don't think they're ready enough for that table step. So it seems like they're getting in the mix of all these big-name recruits, and they're just missing out on them. But if you keep missing out on big-name recruits, you need people to commit to your class.
I feel like South Carolina has been recruiting like a golden retriever chasing tennis balls. Like, here's Jared Curtis. Go get him. Oh, we're chasing Jared Curtis. All right, we're going to go get Jared Curtis. Oh, we got cut from this. Here's another tennis ball. Oh, now we're going to go chase a Brady Schmiegel. We're going to go get him. Oh, we're going to throw another tennis ball. We're going to go get this one. This one, like whatever is active right now, that's what we're going to go do. Oh, the transfer portal opened up. Let's go do this. And they're just all over the place, and they're recruiting short-term, not long-term. And I think it's kind of biting them in the butt right now because you're getting involved on Jared Curtis, but you probably didn't ever have a shot there. You believed you had a shot for a little bit, but ultimately didn't even get a shot there. And then it keeps on flowing down to this quarterback class and all these other classes to where sitting here again in June. Now, there's plenty of time. You have until December pretty much. And again, June and July are the big months when it comes to recruiting because kids are on your campus and that's your time to give one final pitch, and that's when kids are wrapping up their commitments. But Don't know where the momentum is at right now for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to find some. And you know, like we said, there's a lot of time left in the recruiting trail. Things can change come December. But that's going to do it for the National Hour. We will see you here in about, 45 seconds for the Local Hour.
45 seconds.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You really like that? Let's shut up and grind some tape.
For as hard as it is to put a Jeep roof on.
Yeah, well, I didn't bother putting all the clasps down. I just locked it down to where it stays in place to where maybe my seats have some time to dry. But, Georgia humidity, there's no way those things are going to be dry.
What you're saying is if you want a free Jeep cover, head on down to dox his address on iVair.
There might be something valuable in that car, but I highly doubt it.
Not any golf clubs anymore.
No, I learned my lesson there. Don't keep golf clubs in your car because someone will melt your window and steal them right out of your car.
Do you want to intro the Local Hour or do you want me to do that?
Welcome to the Local Hour. We got a loaded show sheet for you guys. We're going to talk that dog. Some people say this is our best hour, Kirby. And you know what? I kind of agree with him. So we're going to be talking about a loaded topics. We're going to be giving UGA Athletics their deserving shout out as a whole because they proved the doubters wrong. Every single one of them. Oh, Georgia's just a football school. That's all they're good at. No, not anymore. We got a lot of coaches that would like to say otherwise. Again, Kirby, the UGA hatred continues.
It continues.
UGA is predicted to miss the playoff, according to one news outlet. Georgia already on upset alert. There's one school apparently that you need to be circling on this year's schedule. I have some recent news on Seven Cloud that feels a little bit significant, given some other recent news on the recruiting trail. If you'd like to know why the Baltimore Ravens drafted Malachi Starks, we'll give you a little bit of an inside look on why they chose him and maybe who had a voice in that one. Then we have some other recruiting topics that we're going to hit on. Kirby's got the wheel loaded up with topics. So let's go ahead and start with giving out some flowers, Kirby. Giving out their congratulations to the UGA Athletics Department in its entirety because they're absolutely crushing it this year.
Dude, they are. And I hate doing this and saying at the period of time where there's not football to pay attention to. We all know that the primary thing that brings Georgia fans together is football. But when you do have an exciting baseball team, when you do have a basketball team that made the tournament for the first time in almost 10 years, when you do have a tennis team that's doing really well, a track team that's winning SEC championships, it makes things a lot more fun, and it entices you to tune in. So I would love to give a shout-out to these teams. I mean, they've been doing a great job. NCAA men's made the tourney this year. Baseball is doing really good. They were ranked by number 1 by some outlets this year. I know that baseball has a lot of weird ranking outlets to them. Tennis national title, track team, women's track team won the SEC. Things like that are Georgia is not just a football school. Mm-hmm. And they've proven that this year.
Softball makes a super regional.
Yeah.
And, I'm glad you brought up this point about baseball because I would like to pick a bone here. Can we just pick one? Can we pick one ranking that's this is the official one, this is one we're going with? Because what I hate so much about this is I think the NCAA goes with D1 baseball's rankings. That's what they go with. And if you ever go onto a broadcast, those are typically the rankings that will be shown. But sometimes you'll go turn on a Tennessee baseball game, and while Georgia's using D1 baseball's rankings, they're using Perfect Games rankings, or they're using someone else's. Basically every school just picks, which one are we ranked highest in? That's the one we're probably going to go with. And, there's no continuity here. And so you have to report on different ones or whatever it is.
You know what they should do?
Just pick one like football does. We go with the AP poll, and then we go with the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yeah, get a committee together of all these officials and have them pick who the top teams are. Have them pick who's in the tournament. Maybe make some former government officials. Have them make all the decisions, and no one will disagree with that ever.
Yeah, you're right.
Foolproof plan.
Nobody ever. Oh, shout out to the equestrian team as well. They're national champs
that's
as well.
Right. They did win the national.
And the women's tennis team won the indoor league as well.
The equestrian team, though, usually is really,
dynasty.
Really good. It's dynasty.
They got a dynasty, man. I'll tell you what. You ain't paying attention to that. They usually roll out some natties every now and then, man. I mean, they consistently win. But, I think they just got to a point. And, look, let's be honest. The comments were not wrong about Georgia being a football school there for a while. I mean, there towards the end of Scott Strickland's run, baseball was not what it should be in the state of Georgia. We know what the basketball program was like prior to Mike White. Tom Crean kind of reined that puppy into the ground. Mark Fox at least had them having somewhat of success, but they weren't exactly like this surging national brand by any means. It looks like Mike White is turning them into that. Tennis teams have always been good, though. I mean, both the men's and women's, they have been dominant for many, many years. So, but softball has definitely been solid over the years as well. But really, it's about in its entirety now. It feels like there's success in every season, in every sports season now, to where if football's not on, don't worry. Wes Johnson and the boys are going to have our back, or Mike White and the boys are going to have our back. The softball team is going to be competitive, and they're going to be fun to watch. The tennis team, go catch them. They're going to win a national title this year. So while the claims were right there for a little bit, certainly not anymore.
Oh, DGD Podcast. Thank you very much for the super sub. Didn't even ask a question. Just slid.
Because DGD Podcast is an OG around here.
Is he already on the?
I guarantee you, DGD Podcast is already.
Are we double writing names on the board? Or?
Oh no, we're still writing names on the board.
All
but
right.
if you want to get your name up on that board, it's a $20 minimum. I believe.
$20 minimum.
Hey, that's Boss Man's rules. All right, not us.
Yeah,
Boss Man's rule. You want your name written up on the wall. Mom said it has to be $20. All right, we can't be just vandalizing the stadium or the studio. Okay, so $20. Get your name written up on the wall. Okay.
That's right.
But thank you, DGD Podcast. We appreciate you.
Jay, well, let's go ahead and spin the wheel one time.
Ooh, a little premature spinning the wheel.
I like to start it off early, dude.
I
The
hear
wheel
you.
has become a staple of the local hour. and
I'm
honestly,
glad
I
we
like
came
it.
up with this.
Ooh, are we going to introduce a new segment of the wheel as well? Crazy but true. All right, so I was stumbling across some statistics today and just, doing my normal dive of preparing show notes and things, and I came across a statistic for Georgia football that was very interesting to me and inspired me to make this segment. Did you know that in Georgia's 63-3 victory over Florida State in the 2023 Orange Bowl, the Dogs did not score a point for the first 11 or closing 11 minutes of the game, which means that their 63-point spree came in the span of 38 minutes of game time.
Oh, I don't remember. When a score is 63-3, you just kind of feel like, oh, that was a throttle from start to finish. Like Georgia came out hot. There was kind of like the national championship game against TCU. Georgia was rolling from the very first possession.
Was not that way. Carson Beck had a fumble in that game.
Now the second, the last 11 minutes makes sense because at that point Georgia was playing Jackson Muschamp at quarterback. Luke Bennett was in at wide receiver. Colin Drake got some run as well at quarterback. I mean, they put anybody and everybody and they mama out on that football field in the fourth quarter. But the first quarter, I really don't remember them having such a slow start.
Yeah, no, I remember vividly thinking like, oh, maybe this is going to be like a barn burn. All I remember seeing, God forbid we lose to a team that's every starter is sitting, because we will never hear the end of how you weren't a real playoff team. You didn't deserve it.
should have made the playoffs.
But the fact is, you beat them by 60 points. And there was, and we talked about this before the show started. If you're not going to win the national championship, that's the best way to end your season. Absolutely demoralize and crush and ruin a team's undefeated season, beat them by 60. Like, give them no room for excuses. Florida State fans even tried to do if we had so-and-so starting, that would have been a game. Brother, 60 point. You're not accounting for a 60-point ass whipping. So, very, very satisfying victory for Georgia.
Yeah, it was the definition of we are here and here is you. Georgia in reverse was like, we're the team that needed to be in the playoffs. We're the team that got screwed out of the college football playoff. We lose one game to Alabama the entire year, and all of a sudden we're kicked out of the Final Four. And I know that Florida State went undefeated, but everybody kind of sniffed that one out a little bit. All right? Everybody kind of knew what that one was going to look like. And you can use all the excuses of, well, every single player opted out. That tells me they knew you didn't have a chance to begin with. All right? They're like, we got to go play Georgia? We got to go play the team that just won back-to-back national titles?
I ain't playing those guys.
Yeah, screw that. Oh, none of them are opting out? I'm going to do myself a favor. I'm going to dip on out of this one.
We'll do one more spin just for good measure. Then we'll get back to the regularly scheduled programming.
What we got?
This is so perfect because it's UGA trivia.
Ooh.
Which is how I found out the crazy but true statistic. But, JWill, can you name me the last Georgia Bulldog to score a touchdown in that game?
Last Georgia Bulldog to score a touchdown against Florida State. I'm going to guess it's a running back.
It was not. I'll give you a hint. It was a pass thrown by Gunnar Stockton.
Pass thrown by Gunnar
Stockton.
Stockton.
A wide receiver.
A wide receiver, so not tight end?
Nope.
Wide receiver, Gunnar Stockton. So at this point, it's got to be somewhere around second string.
Mm-hmm. You want another hint?
Let me think.
Okay.
I feel like I can picture the play.
Don't look at the chat because one of them got it.
One of them already got it.
Yeah,
man, you guys are some fiends, man. My brain doesn't work that quick. Okay, give me another hint.
Another hint, he is no longer on the roster.
Oh, so he's not in the NFL. He's in the NFL?
He's still in college. He's not on the roster.
Not on the roster. So transferred out.
Mm-hmm.
Yazid Haynes?
No. Still plays in the SEC.
Oh, still play. Oh, Anthony Evans.
It was Anthony Evans. He caught he mossed a guy, actually. And I was thinking at that point, between that and the punt return in the SEC championship, like, man, they got something in Anthony Evans.
I was so high on Anthony Evans. And so
Yeah.
much so that even in the middle of the year last year, I was like, this guy needs more playing time. Why aren't we playing him? Well, couldn't really block too well.
There were a couple of reasons why. Like we say, if Kirby Smart usually knows best. If there's reasons why something isn't happening, there's probably legitimate
One of those reasons ended up being shown during the Sugar Bowl, unfortunately.
Yeah. Tough. Anywho, so that'll be a good little wheel spin. Let's talk about now Sugar Bowl. Perfect segue. Georgia, by some accounts, is predicted to not even reach the college football playoff this year. Forget a first-round exit. Forget barely skidding by. Forget not making a deep playoff run. They're going to miss it altogether. So in an article written by ESPN for their 100 Days Out from College Football, they did 10 storylines, 10 things to follow. In that section was a predictions segment. Georgia was predicted to not win or even make the playoffs. And I'll read you.
So is this like a bold prediction or just like a...
It was a bold prediction.
Okay.
Because there were some instances in the same article where they predicted, teams to look for first-round buys. And Georgia was, of course, up there. So, little give and take, trying to cast a wide net for ESPN. Nevertheless, ESPN, let me read the article. For the better part of 3 seasons, the Bulldogs seemed invincible. Only an injury-plagued one-score loss to Alabama in the SEC title game might have prevented Georgia from winning 3 straight national championships. And yet, by the end of 2024, it was clear that some of the shine was off of the dominant winning program. Carson Beck struggled without much help from his skill positions. The Dogs lost to Alabama, were whooped by Ole Miss, and nearly fell to Georgia Tech before escaping in 8 overtimes. By the time Notre Dame eased past Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, it was pretty clear that Kirby Smart didn't have a championship-level team. So, will 2025 be a return to greatness? It's possible, but the SEC is stacked, and with games at Tennessee, home versus Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, and the rivalry showdown against Florida, there are ample opportunities to stumble. Is 8-4 possible? Perhaps 9-3. Would 9-3 Georgia be a sure bet for a playoff? Could things get worse? When the standard is dominance, it's hard to maintain the standard in today's college football.
Okay, so obviously valid points made there. Points that we have made on this show before of, you asked what's worst case scenario for Georgia this year. Absolute worst case scenario probably is 8-4. Like there is a possibility where it gets that bad, maybe. It's a very small percentage, but I mean, I would say it's like that far-fetched to say they missed the playoff this year, but I have a hard time believing it. Just kind of, again, like people point to last year as a reason why they could miss the playoff this year and why Georgia wouldn't win a national title this year. But I think you can also point to last year as a reason why they will make the playoff this year and why they could still win a national title this year, because despite how bad things were going, you still managed to beat Texas twice. You still managed to win your conference. You still managed to get a first-round bye in the college football playoff. You nearly made a historic comeback against Alabama, and you did make a historic comeback against Georgia Tech. Like, there was DNA in that team that, hey, the whistle ain't been blown yet. We're still fighting. And I think that proves to where, like, the standard that everybody wants to point to, the Kirby Smart standard, still existed last year, despite the fact that the run game wasn't where it needed to be, and the run defense wasn't where it needed to be, and the wide receivers had their ups and downs, and the quarterback was throwing interceptions at an abnormally high rate. Like, all of those things, and yet it was still success.
I think the mistake that a lot of members, and I get why you do it, a lot of members of the media make is everything that was bad from last year will transfer over to this year. But everything that was good from last year is gone. Jalen Walker's gone. Malachi Starks is gone. Your offensive line, Tate Ratledge is gone. Jared Wilson's gone. Everything that made you good last year is no longer here. But everything that was bad last year is still with this team. Everyone referencing 2024 as to why they're not going to make the playoff this year is a little interesting in my book. And I get it that it's showing that there was a downward turn and that Georgia had a bad season or an off year by their standards. But I think the problem is that we're assuming as a media group as a whole is that 2024 is the new norm against Georgia, and that's what it is, as opposed to being an outlier. They led the nation in drops last year. They had uncharacteristic penalties. They had really, really slow starts on offense. All things that 3 or 4 years prior you weren't used to seeing for Georgia. So to automatically assume that, well, this is the new Georgia now. This is what Kirby Smart has to deal with in the new era of college football. And I get that you kind of tie it back to that because NIL and recruiting and conference alignments, all this is where, oh, this is what Georgia looks like in the modern era of college football. Not, yeah, 2024 was a really uncharacteristic year for them, but 2025 is going to be more on track.
And let's not forget either that this team blew out Clemson in week 1, a team that made the playoff that year, and a team that returns a lot of members from that team last year that many are projecting to be a national title contender this year. They beat Texas twice. Again, a team that many people are saying could win the national title this year. Many are picking to win the SEC this year. They return and lose quite a bit of contributors from last year. And while it felt like a handling by Notre Dame, and it was somewhat of a handling by Notre Dame, it was a kickoff and a strip sack towards the end of the second half that really tipped that game. And so, like, Georgia was a lot more competitive in that game than what maybe the final score led to be or what the overall feeling around that game was. It wasn't just like Notre Dame went out there and whipped that ass. Marcus Freeman completely outcoached Kirby Smart from quarter 1 to quarter 4. It was really 2 mishaps and 2 unfortunate things that happened where Georgia then lost, and they were starting a quarterback for the first time. He was starting quarter 1 for the first time in his entire career in a college football playoff game.
Yeah, so I get why. And again, it's the trendy thing to do because if you're right, you're like, I was here when I said Georgia's going to have a down year. I predicted all this. And if you're wrong, no one's going to come back and say, where's that guy that said Georgia wasn't going to make the playoff? Let's put his head on a spike. Like things like, you're only wrong when your predictions for a team are too high.
Yeah.
Like, people still cook Desmond Howard for saying Texas A&M was going to be had him in this Final Four.
Oh, that was a horrible Final Four.
That Final Four in general was just bad. But, like, if no one comes back and says, you're not going to win, unless it's, like, egregiously wrong. So, throwing in a bold prediction that Georgia doesn't make the playoff, I get it.
And in an article like that, and I mean, everybody reads these, like, 100 Days Out from college football. They load this article down with all kinds of points, like of like, here's some breakout players, or here's some teams to watch, here's some Heisman contenders, here's going to be the biggest surprises, and then let's get into some bold takes. And it's towards the bottom of the article, and unless you're a Georgia fan, you're probably not reading all the way down there until you see that Georgia G pop up, and you're like, oh, what'd they say about us? So it's hidden. No one's probably going to remember it unless you're on this show or you're listening to this show right now. I bet you. Georgia fans hold a grudge, man.
They do.
They certainly hold a grudge.
They do. They might hold a grudge for this next segment, too, because according to another conglomerate, you guys are going, or I can say it's a local hour. We are going to lose to a very, very team that would be a pretty large upset this season.
A team that is just fighting for bowl eligibility.
Oh.
How'd I put that? If you're from the National Hour, you'll get where I'm going with this. So CBS Sports released their predictions. They're not predictions. They're just like typical offseason content of, this team could definitely upset this team, and Georgia made the list, and it is the Auburn Tigers. Now, this game is at Auburn. We know the deal with Jordan Hare. We know all the voodoo crap that goes on in this stadium. Things don't make sense. Peyton Thorne having a 65-yard rush against Georgia's stout defense, that crap doesn't make sense. What did make sense was Brock Bowers having the biggest game of his life, or one of the biggest games of his life, but weird things happen in that stadium. So if there ever were to say, like, here's an upset, I think most Georgia fans would agree with this one.
I'm going to say this, and this is where I get in trouble for being, the pessimistic fan or someone who's too down on the team. Georgia is on their longest winning streak against Auburn that they've had in like 100 years. Georgia's won, I think it's now 8 games against Tennessee. Georgia's won 4 games against Florida. They've won 30 straight home games. They've won, there's so many streaks. And at some point or another, these streaks are going to come to an end.
Yeah.
Now, in the same vein, they haven't beaten Alabama in the regular season in 18 years. They haven't done X, Y, or Z. So streaks end. But there's a lot of streaks in Georgia's favor right now that are, by law of averages, they will end at some point. Yeah. And it feels like in a year we have to play Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas, in Neyland Stadium. Say what you want about that team. It's a tough environment. It's an early. It'll be Gunnar Stockton's first start. Jordan Hare, we all know about that. Georgia Tech, like, one of these streaks is going to end this year, and it scares me to say it because in a uniform sense, and you look at them one by one, you go, Georgia can beat Tennessee, Georgia can beat Auburn, Georgia can beat Georgia Tech. The home streak can stay alive, but putting that all holistically, something's going to end here. So when I read that Auburn is the team to look out for as the upset team, they're absolutely right. I totally get it, and I'm 1,000% behind this.
Yeah, I mean, I could very easily see us saying the same thing of, like, what's a team that Georgia needs to watch out for or a team that could get Georgia. I think a lot of us would pick Auburn because it is, again, on the road, and Georgia doesn't have the best history of playing Georgia on the road, especially not just given over the years. But you're right. It is very uncharacteristic for a college football program to have this much success against all their rivals at the same time. Like, the fact that you have, like, an entire graduating class from UGA went undefeated against all of their biggest rivals. Like, that is uncharacteristic to happen for any college football program. I don't care who you are. So hopefully you enjoyed it while it lasts, because just like the regular season win streak eventually came to an end, I mean, yeah, there's some long-running streaks that are likely to come. The only one you really don't got to worry about is the bowl eligibility one. Like, that one you're fine. You ain't got to worry about that one.
You're fine, and season openers you're fine.
Yeah.
I think you've won like the last 9 of those. You're undefeated under Kirby Smart. You're not losing to Marshall this year.
Boy, I hope not.
If you lose to Marshall this year, we have so many more other problems to talk about, and it will be hell on Monday if that happens. So, no. But, no, it's absolutely – I totally get why this is. It's a mid-season game. You can catch Georgia sleeping. There might be some key injuries that take place at this point. Auburn will – who knows where they'll be at their season, but you will know damn well that they would love nothing more than to ruin your season. And I think that even putting Tennessee on this would be interesting, but I also get that it's early in the year. No one knows what Tennessee has in Joey Aguilar. Like, those are the 2 games. Those are 2 games that you circle where it's like, if you're going to lose on the road this year, these are the ones. So
yeah.
I get why Auburn's. And by the way, you almost did it in 2023.
Oh, yeah.
I also think how people forget that 2021, while you did beat the shit out of that Auburn team, while you did absolutely handle them, and that score was very indicative of that, it took you a while to get there. Bo Nix drove down the field, had a really, really good drive. You held him to a field goal on the goal line. A dropped pass by a running back and an interception by Nakobe Dean really got things rolling for you, but that could have gone another way as well. So playing in Auburn has always been hard for Georgia, despite the fact that they have haven't lost to them since 2017. If it were this year where that streak ends, I wouldn't be surprised.
The good thing about when Georgia plays at Auburn is that no matter what, it's entertaining. Like, even if it is a close game between the two, and maybe it shouldn't be, at least it's entertaining. Like, at least it feels like it's a fair matchup to where, like, when Georgia goes and plays against Kentucky, it's a snooze fest. It's a close game, or it has been a close game the past few years, but it's a damn snooze fest.
It's like, oh, my God.
It's a horrible football game.
If this is the game that we lose,
yeah,
it will be so unsatisfying.
And that's what, like, those are super frustrating to lose, because it's like Georgia just clearly was not playing their best. And it's Kentucky. Like, it's not even like, oh, this is one of the best environments in all of the country. This is one of the best stadium atmospheres in the SEC. Whereas Auburn, like, there's history, there's hatred. They have the atmosphere. They have the stadium. Like, everything adds up to where at least it's like, all right, like, that one I can understand. But then again, when their head coach is like, fighting for a bowl game this year, boys, it's still a tough one to swallow if you were to drop it.
But then again, like, if you do that and then you beat Georgia, you set your bar low so you can always exceed expectations.
Great success. That'd be a great success.
I need to rewatch that movie. JWill, let's spin the wheel again, because honestly, I hope that this will transition us perfectly into the question I wanted to ask you with this upset, but let's see here. I really want the would you rather, but we're at the mercy of the wheel.
I think we'll eventually get to it.
Oh.
Did we get it?
We might have gotten it.
Call your shot.
Let's go. All right. Would you rather keep the home win streak alive this season? That means you beat Ole Miss, you beat Alabama, you beat Texas, or win the SEC championship. Now, I want to put a caveat on that. Just because you beat Alabama, just because you beat Texas, just because you beat Ole Miss at home, your home streak stays alive, that doesn't mean you go undefeated in the season. Florida, not an easy win. We just talked about how Tennessee could be an upset team. We just had a full segment out of Auburn. So just because you're winning the SEC doesn't mean, we win all of our home games. We're going to the SEC championship. We're all the way home. Like, there's a lot to take into consideration there.
But still could make the SEC title game if you go the home win streak route. Like, there's still a possibility.
Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't know if there was like, you keep the home win streak alive, but you're not in the SEC title game. Still might make the playoff, but not in the SEC title game. So it almost like picking the SEC title game feels like the safest option because you're probably guaranteed to make the playoff. You're going to be playing for a national title. You might even get a first-round bye. Like all
if you win the SEC, you get a first-round bye.
And you probably go at worst 10-2 in that scenario. Like that's basically what you're guaranteeing is at worst you go 10-2 this year and you're in the SEC title game. But keeping the home win streak alive, beating Alabama, beating Ole Miss, and beating Texas, that's already one hell of a resume. And if you're able to do that, I would assume you're good enough to win the majority of your road games as well, and you're likely in position to be in the playoff. You might not be in the SEC title game, but you're certainly good enough to compete with some of the best teams in the country. I think I'd rather keep the streak alive, go 3-0 against Ole Miss, Texas, and Alabama, and just take a chance on making the playoff.
All right, let me ask you this then. Would you keep the home win streak alive if it meant you were absolutely going to lose to Auburn and Tennessee?
I don't know. It's a little tough. Probably not, because like you got to take guaranteed success at that point. Like now you're putting yourself at too much risk to where you drop another one. Like if Georgia Tech has that horseshoe up their ass this year, and they get you, then you're 9-3. Then you're kind of screwed. Whereas you got to take the guaranteed success in that situation because that's what the expectation is at Georgia. You make the playoff, you play for national titles. Like, that's bare minimum.
I do think this is a perfect example of how diminished the meaning of conference championships has become. Because ask this question in 2015 where it's like, hey, would you rather win 30 straight home games or win the SEC title? Like, jump at the bit. Give me an SEC
Give me the trip to Atlanta.
I mean, even in 2018 when you just won it last year, like, I would love to see a back-to-back SEC championship victory. Sure, I'll take that. I don't really care about home win streaks. You win some home games, you lose some home games. But now, like, you have the prestige. Now, again, 30 home games is something you don't see a lot. But it does talk about it. It is an example of how diminished conference title games have become.
Yeah, and we know how Kirby Smart feels about the SEC title game. I mean, it is the biggest football game of the entire year, bigger than the Super Bowl, bigger than any playoff game you could play in. Winning the SEC is essentially winning the national championship somewhat to him. Like that's the standard it is held to at the University of Georgia. And we have heard players talk about it. I can vividly remember Kyrus Jackson talking about it like, screw adding a title to the wall. We want to add an SEC title to that wall. That's what we want to do.
Trevor Etienne literally said last year after the game, like, this is why I came to Georgia, to win games like this.
I wanted to play in the SEC championship game, not play in the national title game. I wanted to play in the SEC title game. Yeah. So we know how the players feel about it. So
I think people forget that he was questionable to even play in that game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was battling a rib injury, so I was like, no, I'm playing. Like, I want to be in this game. So there's still meaning there, but it has been diminished.
I think as long as the coaches and the players care about it and they value it like that. Now, I know that maybe not every conference views it that way, but if Georgia feels that way about it, if Kirby Smart feels that way about it, I would imagine that majority of SEC coaches feel the same way about it. So as long as that exists, I think we'll be okay. But, again, we don't know anything about what the future of college football is going to do.
Something that still very much holds its meaning is being a first-round pick in the NFL draft. It comes with a nice signing bonus. You get to be on the first team. A lot of prestige that goes with it. And the Baltimore Ravens kind of gave a behind-the-curtains look as to what went into their selection of course, safety Malachi Starks, who was the 27th pick in this year's draft.
I believe so. It was
Am I
back
remembering
end
that
of the first
correctly?
round.
But they did a lot of, behind the scenes and the phone calls and coaches talking about who. And it was really interesting because it featured a pretty recognizable face for the Georgia Bulldogs.
I want to ask this, though. Say you're the first overall pick. You get the $25 million signing bonus just wired into your account overnight. You sign the contract next morning, $25 million in your bank account. What are you doing? The first thing, what are you doing?
Probably paying off all debts that me or my extended family have.
I think that,
or if I'm living in California, I'm deferring that shit.
Deferred it.
Just saying, I'll wait till a little later.
Hold out on that for me. I think that it would take a minute to adjust to knowing that you can now do that. Like, I think that because like you've lived your life, one lifestyle for however long, and I know that college athletes are compensated now, whatever. But let's just say you're poor, or by standards you're poor, didn't have a lot of money, and now you got $25 million. I think me personally, it would take a little bit of time for me to be like, oh, I could buy stuff like that now. I think I would still just kind of go about my normal lifestyle for a little bit. Like maybe this shit's fake. Maybe that number's fake, man. This bogus. That's not actually how much money I got.
Yeah,
but
no,
ask that.
It's a fun question to ask about. Now I'm thinking about $25 million and how I don't have that. But
yeah.
Either way, we did get a very in-depth look at what went into the selection of Malachi Starks, because the war rooms of these drafts processes are very interesting. But you saw a video of this that kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah, and I think what's most interesting about this is it wasn't just the conversations about the staff members of the Baltimore Ravens and the scouting department having a conversation about why they should draft Malachi. It was Todd Monken specifically saying why the Ravens needed to draft Malachi Starks. And if you remember correctly, Todd Monken's final year at the University of Georgia was Malachi's freshman year, his true freshman season, when they went on to win the national title that year. So Monken was around at Georgia when they were recruiting Malachi. He was around in the process of getting him to Georgia and watching him take over the defense essentially as a true freshman. And this is what he had to say to his fellow staff members as why Malachi is worth a first-round pick. He's on point right off the bat, Monken said. I mean, his eyes are wide awake. He's smart. Malachi is a stud. You can tell in recruiting him to Georgia. You can tell he's wide awake. Great family. Stud. This guy is different. Like, whatever skill he's got, he's going to maximize it.
I think there's a lot to be said about, one, the fact that Todd Monken never really pollinated with Malachi Starks. The OC in the safety room don't really cross-pollinate. Now, I do know that Malachi did play some offense when he was at Jefferson, so maybe Todd Monken looked at that a little bit. But for the most part, didn't really interact with Malachi Starks. And even if he did, it was only for one season as an 18-year-old kid. So for that small amount of time and that very, very short window to be interacting that much and have all those things to say about how, hey, this kid is on point, great family, maximizes his skill set, it says a lot to who Malachi Starks is as a player, and it kind of backs up the lore and the legend that he was at Georgia. Mm-hmm. Like Malachi, like it's very hard to be an instantly recognizable name when you're a safety on defense, unless you're some kind of star, unless you're doing some punt returns, kick returns, unless they let you play both ways. No, Malachi Starks, now he returned a couple punts every now and then, but Malachi Starks for the most part was just a safety. And he was one of the more recognizable names on Georgia football. And it was solely because of the way he played football. It wasn't because he had off-field distractions or he had a TikTok account that went viral. It was just because Malachi Starks played really, really good football. So for the fact that an OC who probably hasn't talked to him in 3 to 4 years can say all those things about him, it's very impressive.
I would imagine that most of Todd Monken's impressions on Starks was, all right, we got best on best at practice, number one offense versus, and especially now that we know this quote, if people don't remember, Malachi Starks at the NFL Combine this year, people ask, like, how did you earn a starting spot on that defense? Because this is still the Georgia defense that has Jalen Carter on it and all these studs. Like, it was still littered with NFL draft prospects, first-round NFL draft prospects. It's like, how did you land a starting gig on that defense? And he went on to say that I beat Brock Bowers more than he beat me, specifically talking about Brock. Didn't say like, oh, I just won more reps or I looked good. Specifically said, I beat Brock Bowers more than he beat me. I covered him. I won those reps. So I would imagine that Todd Monken's first impressions was, all right, best on best, let's go. We got number one offense versus number one defense. And Will Muschamp and the boys are like, all right, Malachi, like, let's see what you got, man. And then Monken's like, who the hell is this?
Who the hell is this?
Because especially knowing, like, Monken's not really out on the recruiting trail all that much, or wasn't when he was at Georgia. So he's like, who's this number 24 we got out here running around, man? Like, who's this guy locking up Brock Bowers? Like, who the heck is this guy? And then I'm sure that was like, let me pick your brain a little bit, man. What do you know about us?
Yeah, so shout out to Malachi, and I think, I would assume, it's a pretty safe bet that he's going to have a very long NFL career.
Yeah,
watching him play opposite side Kyle Hamilton on the Ravens is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, going to start this year for them. So you're going to get an early look at Malachi. And if his NFL career starts as quickly as his college football career does, then Ravens fans are going to love him. NFL fans in general are probably going to love watching Malachi because that is a guy that doesn't do a whole lot of wrong on the football field. And he's always going to be in position. He's a playmaker. He does everything that you would ever want out of a safety and can do anything that you would ask him to. So certainly a good pickup for them. Certainly glad that he landed in a spot like that because especially in the first round, the last thing you want is for prospects to go like these organizations that have struggled for so long, and it feels like he might just get buried under the low market team or whatever it is. But this is a pro organization that has been successful, has been in the playoffs, has been in put in high leverage situations, and it was just cool to see that. Despite the fact that Todd Monken is no longer at Georgia, he was like, and it was 1 year spent with Malachi. It's not like he spent 3 seasons with him and missed out on his senior year. I mean, he spent 1 season, and that's what he had to say about Malachi.
Yeah.
So cool that he ended up there.
All right, I want to transition this into something that I don't necessarily think needs to be talked about, but I think it does at the same time. So everyone has kind of become familiar with the name Drew Rosenhaus, given the events of Jackson Cantwell's recruitment and everything else that goes on with the sport of college football. And today, Rosenhaus Sports, the agency that he runs, announced that they had signed Seven Cloud. Seven Cloud is, of course, a prospect and a commit on Georgia's 2026 recruited class, is one of the higher-ranked commits. This news kind of sent everyone in the Georgia space and a lot of other people kind of into a frenzy of, oh, here he goes to Miami. This recruitment just got doubled in price, everything like that. And I think that we need to at least acknowledge what just happened, but at the same point, kind of cool everyone off of, yes, Drew Rosenhaus is now representing Seven Cloud. You would have to assume that the recruitment got a little bit more pricey. I think we also need to take into consideration that a week and a half ago, Seven Cloud shut down his recruitment, said, I'm full Georgia. It's over. No one else talked to me. I'm staying on the Bulldogs. I will sign with them in December. I'm not too privy to what all goes on in the sports agency world. I would have to imagine that Seven Cloud didn't pick up the phone today, get a call from Drew Rosenhaus and said, hey, would you like me to represent you as your agent? And he said yes. This has probably been something that's been going on for a while, prior to Seven Cloud announcing that he is shutting down his commitment. Now, he could very well open his commitment back up and do what we've seen many times before and open up negotiation tactics and try to get more money. The reality of it is this. Seven Cloud is at a defensive line prospect where that is a position group that is always going to be in high demand no matter what. That is a high-value position for prospects. Keeping Seven Cloud on your class from May to December was always going to be more expensive. Signing Drew Rosenhaus doesn't necessarily mean that it's doubling in price or that he's going to sway the kid to go to Miami just because Jackson Cantwell went to Miami and Drew Rosenhaus is a Miami alumni. By the way, let's also take into consideration Jalen Carter, represented by Drew Rosenhaus. There's other players. I think we
Smile
said
Munden is
Smile
represented
Munden,
by
like,
him. Malachi Starks, I believe, is represented by him. So this guy's got a lot of clients.
So, yes, exactly. Like, there are a lot of clients that have committed to University of Georgia, signed with the University of Georgia, played with the University of Georgia their entire careers that were represented by Drew Rosenhaus. I think the stigma around this has kind of become, oh, God, the guy that just got Jackson Cantwell to go to Miami is going to get all the other players to go to Miami. I don't think that's Drew Rosenhaus's MO.
No.
I don't think Drew Rosenhaus is carrying that much water for the Miami Hurricanes, despite being an alumni. Drew Rosenhaus will do what is best for business, and I would assume that Seven Cloud staying with the Georgia Bulldogs, who they have stayed committed to him through, he was a 2023 high school prospect. Like, this kid's been through the ringer, whether it's JUCO or that. Georgia's been there the whole way. So the fact that I don't think Georgia fans need to go, this is gone. We've lost this commit. It's only a matter of time before he flips to Miami or demands more money and we can't afford him. I don't think that's what's happening here. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's what's happening.
I do want to read this real quick because this is some pretty compelling news that Ross Dellinger just reported. This is a tweet that he just made. There's an article attached to this, but I'll just give you the headline. In a stunning move, the power conferences have drafted a contract that would bind schools to new enforcement rules and require them to waive the right to sue over decisions. Sources tell Yahoo Sports. Schools not signing may risk conference eviction.
Whoa.
So, in other words, this is putting a stop to, we didn't like what the NCAA did to us. All right, we're going to sue you now. And if you don't sign this, then you could be kicked out of your conference, just to kind of give you the cliff notes on that one. But anyways, let's go back to Seven Cloud because this is a good current topic about Georgia. And I know that people are saying, well, he's a 3-star. This guy shouldn't be getting paid a whole bunch of money. Well, here's the thing. we've told you on this network that Georgia thinks that Seven Cloud is the best defensive lineman in the 2026 class, point blank, period. That is the best athlete that you can get at that position right now. Georgia has him right now. So the recruiting rankings are saying he's a 3-star. He was going to be a 3-star coming out of high school, out of McEachern, but this dude is viewed in the eyes of Georgia of a 5-star. Like, this is the cream of the crop of this class when it comes to the defensive side of the football. So if Georgia's thinking that, then I'm sure there's some other college football programs that are thinking that as well. The other point to this is, I think it's the recent events that are kind of making people get a little bit of a jump scare from this of, whoa, he just hired this guy. This guy just influenced a little bit Jackson Cantwell to go to Miami. And I know that Drew Rosenhaus certainly has money at play too because he gets a percentage of this. So, sure, maybe he is saying, listen out to some other deals. Let's make sure we get the most money. But like you mentioned, Kirby, like Georgia was in on this one when he was coming out of high school. He goes to community college, and Georgia remained in on this one, and yet he commits to Georgia yet again. And everything is pointing to he is going to go to the University of Georgia. And I think that does mean something, despite how some recruitments, it seems like relationships don't matter and being the first one in the room doesn't matter anymore. But I feel like this one might be one of those. But, I mean, it's any recruit right now that is verbally committed to any school, but at the University of Georgia right now, we all know things can change very quickly, just like Georgia does. I mean, Georgia pulls a move with K.J. Bolden on early National Signing Day of, you're going to go to Florida State. Well, actually, you're going to go here. And C.J. Wiley was an example of this where he verbally commits, and he's going to go to Florida State, and then he decommits, and he goes to Georgia. Like, everybody does this. So we know how quickly things can change, but I don't think that Drew Rosenhaus being hired as his agent is a reason to be like, whoa, we lost him. He's going to decommit from us.
And also, the Twitter feed is not up. I can't put it up, obviously. But if you go to the Rosenhaus Sports Twitter, it is in big block letters. Welcome to the family, Seven Cloud. And underneath that, in bold as day, NIL representation. Agents don't only handle, hey, sign with this team, negotiate with this, we'll get you this amount of deal. Like, yes, that is a big aspect of it. They can also negotiate NIL deals. They also negotiate outside sponsorships, things like that to generate revenue elsewhere. Like, the reality is this could totally just be like, hey, Seven, you might want to look at Drew Rosenhaus, who is an excellent agent who also can get you in with Zaxby's. He can get you a Nike sponsorship. He can get you X, Y, or Z. It might not even have anything to do with negotiating with teams out of recruitment because, like we said, a week ago, Seven Cloud shut it down and said, I'm done with recruiting. I'm sticking with Georgia. I don't think now, like I said, I don't think that today Seven Cloud or the last 3 days picked up the phone since announcing his commitment was over and Drew Rosenhaus was like, hey, I want to change your mind about that. We can get more money out of this thing. I think Drew Rosenhaus and Seven Cloud are on a deal together so that Seven Cloud can get more outside opportunities.
Yeah, if you have the opportunity to hire one of the biggest names in the agent market, why would you not hire that guy? Why would you not want him representing you? This guy represents a litany of professional athletes and guys that are going to the league. Why would you not want one of the best representing you? So Seven Cloud has the opportunity to do that. Yeah, I think a lot of us would do that as an athlete. And yes, every agent probably does want what's best for their bank account, but 98% of human beings want to do what's best for their bank account, including college football players and high school prospects and head coaches and just people in general. Like, we want to do what is best for us monetarily. So that's a driven factor for a lot of people. But we're just saying that just because this player has hired an agent doesn't mean that it's setting off red flags or alarms. It's just a simple fact of a player that is about to be making NIL money at the University of Georgia needs representation, and he needs to get that representation. And if he can get it from one of the best in the business, then yeah, he probably needs to do that. And clearly, this is someone that Georgia football players and previous Georgia football players trust, and he's very familiar with the University of Georgia and what Kirby Smart and them do. So it makes sense that a future Bulldog would want representation from this guy.
All right, I think we've beat this horse to death enough time. Let's move on to the other recruiting topic of this. Kind of got wind today that Georgia was predicted to flip a major linebacker commit to Auburn. Shadarius Tootle has been, I don't remember who did the exact projection, but
Steve Wiltfong.
Steve Wiltfong dropped a Wiltfong bomb and projected that Georgia will flip the linebacker. And, you know, that's obviously great news. Usually these guys that make these predictions are fairly right, but I also do think we just talked about this. You would have to imagine that for as much as Auburn has been prioritizing recruiting classes and winning on the recruiting trail, they're going to do everything they can to keep this guy in their class.
Yeah, I mean, DeMarcus Riddick is an example of this where Georgia was kind of battling that one for a while, the linebacker. and it looked like maybe he was going to flip to Georgia, but ultimately Auburn fastened down the hatches, and they were like, all right, never mind. He is going to stick with Auburn. So, and Tootle was recently on a visit to Georgia this past weekend, and so there's certainly a lot of buzz around that. In fact, I think he even gave the quote that Georgia is his number one, despite the fact that he is an Auburn commit right now. So, yeah, it seems like he's loving the Dogs right now. He's loving Georgia. He's loving what they're telling him. And, I mean, it makes sense, especially knowing Georgia's history at the linebacker position. It feels like it'd be pretty easy as a top prospect of the position to fall in love with Athens and what they've got going on there and what they're able to tell you and pitch to you. But I don't know. I think that Auburn is going to do everything that they can to make sure he stays in that class. And, I mean, they do a lot of things. And we know that they're willing to play ball if they have to, especially for a guy that they want. And Tootle is certainly somebody that they want. So I wouldn't just say that, oh, yeah, it's a done deal that Auburn is going to or Georgia's going to flip Tootle. I think that it's certainly one to watch. And it certainly seems like Georgia is in a good position right now following the visit, but still got some time left, still got some visits left, so we'll see how that one plays out. But I think the other question that people immediately ask, and it's one that we continue to run into after we have recruiting conversations because it is a big one, and it feels like every single recruitment involves this guy, is this a Tyler Atkinson replacement? Does this mean Georgia is just punting on Tyler Atkinson and saying, bye-bye, we're good on you now because we're going to go after Tootle? No. Just like majority of prospects that Georgia recruits, they recruit them like just like anything. If anything was going to happen, we want you in this class no matter what, no matter if Tyler Atkinson commits, no matter if Nick Abrams commits, whoever, we are recruiting you to come to the University of Georgia no matter what. Now, of course, that does mean that you're putting money elsewhere, and maybe that doesn't free up as much money to land a player like Tyler Atkinson, but I wouldn't say that this is a sign that Georgia's like swiping their hands and saying we're done, like we're no longer pursuing Tyler Atkinson. They're pursuing Tyler Atkinson. Now, has that one gotten a little more complicated? Sure. Has Ohio State kind of emerged as a front runner there? That's what many believe, and it seems like that is certainly the truth, but Georgia's still pursuing Tyler Atkinson. I can promise you that. I mean, just last week they had dinner with him. I believe it was Schumann and another coach was with him. They went and had dinner with Tyler Atkinson. So they're still very involved with that one. I don't think you're ever going to see Georgia just punt on a 5-star linebacker in state. Don't think you'll ever see them do that.
Yeah, and I think that this part of the year is a very turbulent time because recruiting is really the only news that you can hold on to, so everything gets amplified that much more. Also, take into consideration, these are 16, 17-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. You visit a college campus for the first time, you walk around, you see everything it has to offer, and all the coaches are taking you, showing you the facilities, and they're telling you how much they love you. They're showing you pictures of you in their jersey. They're letting you do all the recruiting visit things.
Might even give you some brand merch, your own brand merch. Might even print some T-shirts for you.
Might even take you to McDonald's. Oh. Stuff like that.
Get a Big Mac?
Yeah, dude, very Big Mac. Very impressionable, like 16, 17, all these, and then you go off and you say, man, I love this school. It's Brooks talked about it. It's why so many kids commit to USC off jump. You go out and you see LA and you get all these things. It's like, all right, I'm in. And then you think about it a little longer. So Shadarius Tootle is coming off of a really, really successful visit for Georgia, and it seems like they have certainly put themselves in great position to land him. I don't think it's a done deal just yet, but it's definitely trending in the right direction if you're Georgia.
And I think that just kind of encapsulates the entire weekend that Georgia had. It seems like they're in a good spot with a lot of players that were there. Ryan Mosley seems like one of these players. It seems like he had a good reaction to the visit that he had in Athens. It seems like the scavenger hunt was a success for Georgia, doing that as it typically is for them. It seems like they're picking up some momentum on the recruiting trail. But, yeah, like we mentioned, certainly one to keep your eye on, if anything. That's what I would say. But having a guy named Tootle on your roster playing linebacker, that's pretty ballin'. That's pretty sick, man.
It's a great name.
It is a great name.
I'd love to know where the origin is of that.
I don't know.
All right, JWill, we've got 2 more spins.
Let's knock them out,
left
baby.
For tonight's show. I think it's between a throwback game and Name That Bulldog, which I'll be very interested to see if you get this Name That Bulldog. All right, first hint. This Georgia Bulldog played cornerback during the Mark Richt era.
Mecole Hardman.
No. That's a fun guess.
Cheeky though, isn't it?
I think people forget that Mecole Hardman was recruited as a DB.
Man, that would have been a historic snipe.
Now I will say I'm pretty sure Mecole Hardman was a member of the 2016 class.
Okay.
So he wouldn't have been on the Mark Richt era anyways.
You're probably right.
This player was a 3rd-round draft pick in 2009.
2009?
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm not going to be able to get it off a draft pick from then.
Okay. Hint number 3, he played 3 seasons for the Minnesota Vikings. That was his...
Defensive back, Minnesota Vikings, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Like a super memorable Georgia player?
Memorable name, for me at least, a very memorable name. Was a very solid corner for you for a while.
I got to make sure I don't look at chat. Let me click off. So, yeah, you're going to have to keep going.
He wore the number 2.
Boykin?
It was not Brandon Boykin. Brandon Boykin was a little bit later than that. This was the guy before Brandon Boykin.
And I don't think he played for the Vikings either. This was before Brandon Boykin.
Brandon Boykin played for the Eagles and the Steelers a while, I'm pretty sure.
Last name Allen. That's who's coming to mind right now. Asher Allen?
Asher Allen is the correct answer.
Let's go!
Dude, that was good. That's a fun name. That was one of the first names I remember Larry Munson saying in like my ears perking. I don't know. I guess the alliteration of it or Asher Allen. Asher is such a good football name.
It's a shame Brooks is not here to do his Larry Munson impersonation right now.
God, dude,
Not a fan?
Not a fan of Larry Munson. But there's some things that's just like, leave it be.
Stay away.
Leave it be. You don't remake different certain movies. You don't do certain impressions. Like, let them do them and just let it be its own. DG Podcast is on the board again, dude. Good Lord.
This time with a question. Thinking about getting a console for me and the family. Which one should I go with? Like, so you're saying family. Now, you're not a huge gamer, Kirby, but do you have input?
I've always been an Xbox guy.
I have also been an Xbox guy, but if you're saying for me and the family, I feel like Nintendo Switch is a good, safe option. And I know that you have kids, Robert, so I feel like the Nintendo Switch is a good one. You got all kinds of games you can play. You can take it on the road with you. You can play it on the road. Like, you can do all the things that you want. So, like, from a family aspect, I feel like Nintendo does it best, where, like, if you want to sit down as a family and play a game, that's probably the one to roll with. But I'm also an Xbox guy, so I guess I'll show my bias there and say get an Xbox, I guess. Thank you for the $20, though, Robert. We appreciate you.
I would also say that, like, if you want to, like, stream movies on it and just, like, have that, it can be your own Roku, go the Xbox route. PS5 can do that too, but
Microsoft's cooler, man.
We're an Xbox channel. All right. Didn't even need to bother spinning just because it's the last segment of the night. We're going to talk about 2017 UGA versus Mississippi State. This is the game I remember for, obviously, the flea flicker, start the night off.
Hey, guess who's barking first?
The iconic Joe Tessitore call. I also remember this for being the Roquan Smith absolutely baptized Nick Fitzgerald game. And for some reason, I remember the Dominic Sanders interception late in the third quarter, maybe it was the fourth quarter, where the ball gets tipped up in the air and he, like, jumps in the air and catches. I don't know why that play stuck in my head, but Georgia won that game, 38-3 was the final score?
31-3.
31-3. One of the first, like, so I think people remember that Notre Dame win was a great win for Georgia. Neither team was ranked inside the top 15.
Nope.
That was like all right.
Top 25 matchup,
yeah, top
two big
25
brands.
matchup, Notre Dame on the road, really, really good win. This one was like, we're a legit team this year. Mississippi State was riding a really big high. This is the Dan Mullen years. I think they were ranked 11th? 17th at the time. Georgia was ranked 11th.
Yes.
It's like these are two legit teams. This is really good. Nick Fitzgerald had a lot of hype coming into it.
Oh, gosh,
Georgia absolutely shut them down.
Yeah, I remember the Nick Fitzgerald hype. That was certainly real and true. I remember people were like, man, this guy's just going to do anything he wants to Kirby Smart's defense. To recap, he had 83 passing yards and 2 interceptions that day. He did not have too good of a day against Georgia. You brought up a great point, how there was a former Georgia player on the Mississippi State coaching staff that was like, we finna beat that ass this weekend. Mississippi State's going to win this game. So there was some heated back and forth, but it truly was what felt like the first, like the final, like, oh, this is different now. Like, this is a different Georgia now.
I remember I was a sophomore in high school during this game, and I remember still, like, this was still early enough in the Kirby Smart era to where you get kind of nervous before these games. Now, if a top 25 team comes rolling in Georgia, you're like, whatever, dude. Georgia's better. You trust Kirby Smart. They're going to win. Kirby hadn't necessarily proven that yet. They had just come off an 8-5 season. Notre Dame was a good win in the right direction, but this was I think people forget how big of a deal this was for Mississippi State. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, Sonny Michel did not play a very big role in this game.
No, he only had 7 carries. Nick Chubb had 15 for 81 yards, and then DeAndre Swift, I want to say, had 10 carries in this game. Sonny Michel must have been banged up during this one, if I had to guess.
That also brings me to another, like, they did a very good job of keeping how low Sonny Michel was banged up throughout the year. Like, I don't know if you remember in the Auburn game the same year, the SEC championship, he injures his knee in like the second quarter.
Yeah.
And like it was like, he's okay. They're just kind of seeing what's going on right now. I'm thinking like, oh God, Sonny Michel's torn his ACL. That's the whole reason why DeAndre Swift was in that game and had the big run in the fourth quarter, because Sonny Michel was hurt. So another one of these games where Sonny Michel was banged up, but you never really noticed. Kind of helped that you had 3 really, really first-round credible running backs on your team.
Oh, it was a typical early Kirby Smart victory. Jake Fromm was 9 for 12 with 2 touchdowns and 201 yards.
And 65 of those yards were on one play on a flea flicker.
Yeah.
To where all you had to do was throw it to Terry Godwin.
Yeah, just a nice little win for certainly a memorable one. That is one that I feel like I'll remember for a long, long time. So that was a good pull right there. I think that is it for us.
That's going to do it for a Monday night.
Cutting them a few minutes short tonight, but you know what? We'll make it up to you at some point. I promise you.
Guys, it's the middle of May.
We try, man.
There's not a lot to talk about right now. We're trying for you. Brooks will be back. Brooks is coming back.
He says he expects himself to be back. Just FYI, I feel like we forget to do this quite a bit. But if you're still here and wondering, where is Brooks? He's not here. Brooks is in South Georgia. He checked out a very important prospect for Georgia in the 2027 class of Damian Guyton, #1 player in the country. That's a big one right there that Georgia's certainly honing in on. So he went down there to see that at Benedictine Military School. So he's hanging out down there tonight. But he says he expects to be back in studio for tomorrow's show. Will he be on time? I don't know, but he expects to be here. So until then, we will see you guys tomorrow. We love you. We appreciate you. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you tomorrow.
RIP the JWill and Kirby show.